Well, despite all of us living in the time of plague and time no longer having any meaning whatsoever, downloadable content is still going. And on today's episode, we are going to have our second free play of Season 10. So what will the five of us come up with this time? Who knows? Place your bets. Strap in for our open discussion next. Hello everyone, I am Brian. Welcome to Downloadable Content, and with me on this episode we have Ron.
Hey everyone.
We have Ronny.
Greetings.
We have Ryan.
Heyo.
And we have Spencer.
Howdy.
The three R names there, it rolls off the tongue. It's Ron, Ronny, Ryan.
You can get on board, Brian. You've changed part of your name once. You can get an R name.
You can cut the B off and become Rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. See, my name is spelled R-Y-A-N, not R-I-A-N.
But actually, for those of you out there, very recently I went clean shaven for the first time in 9 years, and it took the internet by shock. And one of the comments,
we swore you were replaced by a doppelganger.
Yeah,
basically.
who are you? What have you done with Brian? And I said it's my evil twin cousin Brian with a Y. So, so that's who we got. So, but yes.
I didn't know you had a transport accident.
Of course, we still all can't forget that. If we think the clean shaven Brian will surprise everyone, the dyed hair Brian will be like,
"Oh, that'll be soon." Wyatt is gonna put up the poll very soon, so that I'm very excited about that. So, but yes, so we're gonna dive in. It's an open discussion. Anything we want related to video games. I am very curious to see what we're going to come up with on this one. But before we dive in, just want to remind everyone that every single episode of Downloadable Content can be found on our website, dlcpodcast.com. Episodes can also be found on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and on the newfangled Spotify all you kids seem to love. So, it's all there. All the different ways to get downloadable content into your ears. But please wash your hands afterward. Please. Proper hygiene is important. So, with that said, there are five of us. I'm going to appeal to Spencer's love of the RNG and use a D6.
Praise the gods.
Praise the gods. All right, so I'm number 1, Ron is 2, Ronny is 3, Ryan is 4, Spencer is 5, and 6 is a roll again. So let's see who is going to start us off, and it is Ryan.
Ooh, nice.
You get first go.
Wow, that doesn't happen very often. But anyways, all right. So diving right on in, as everybody may or may not know, especially for those who see my posts on Facebook and stuff, I am borderline. Well, actually, not borderline. Definite otaku, and there was actually a game that recently came out. I want to say end of April. Yeah, holy crap! End of April. That seems like so far away.
Time has no meaning. I've aged 300 years just this last week.
Right. Anyways, so going on with that, there are some games that there's actually an entire line of a game series that's known as JRPGs or Japanese role-playing games. And one of I've actually kind of almost gotten addicted to the series now, is called Persona. For those of you who do not know what the Persona series is, it's basically taking dungeon crawling I don't want to call it dating simulation, but it's kind of like they're called social links, which is basically you talk to all these different characters. They start off as
relationship builder.
Yeah, relationship builder. Then you also have side quests built in, other quests and whatnot. It's basically an RPG combined with how do you put it? Oh yeah, relationship builder, and then a few other, and then other things added in that. Oh, and also you actually have a system where you pass time by passing like morning, afternoon, after school, evening, and days and months actually pass by. And
I was gonna say, ultimately, I think the basic mechanic of that everything ties back to in that game is the strategic time management. I think is the underlying mechanic of everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I recently got I actually played through it twice because, as I found out, it is designed for multiple playthroughs. Persona 5 Royale, that was a very fun game to go through. So the premise of Persona 5 Royale, you start off as, you can name him anything you want, but we'll go with the protagonist, or Joker in this case. Find out that Joker has to transfer to a new school into near Shibuya area, like the city area and stuff.
Tokyo. It's basically Tokyo.
Yeah, basically Tokyo, because apparently he got.
It isn't basically Tokyo. It is literally Tokyo. It's based on a real place. You can actually see that neighborhood if you go there.
I've
seen actual pictures of the real place. Count with like the picture from the game. They did a very good job of directly representing the different areas.
Yeah, it's like how accurate things are with that was amazing. So to start off, Joker has to transfer over into Tokyo to a new school called Shujin Academy because apparently he got arrested for a crime he did not do. We see what happened. Basically, he protected a woman from getting assaulted from a drunk guy, and apparently he got in trouble for that because it's corrupt. But anyway,
the guy was a relatively well-to-do politician, and he flexes his muscles to get this kid thrown in basically juvenile hall.
Yep, and because of that, he has to transfer to a new school where, as you all know with high schools, rumors are the devil.
Yep.
And he goes on to there. And so now here's where we get into the meaty part. Well, at least just start off with this. The basic starting off point. He finds on his phone, he gets an app that's a red app that looks like it's got an eye on it.
Can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
I just so I know, are we just talking about how awesome Persona is? Because I'm totally on board with that. Or do you have another point about Persona you're gonna make?
I have a bit of another point I'm gonna make about it. I kind of want to just go through how Persona 5 works.
I wasn't sure because I'm like, if you're trying to get to a point, then I won't say anything and just let you get to the point. But if we're just talking about how awesome Persona is, then I will be jumping in and out.
Yeah, I want to focus. I'll go back to it maybe in the second half of how awesome it is, but I want to focus on Persona 5 Royale first. So basically, as I'm trying to go through, basically he finds an app. It's called. It transfers
into a place.
Yep.
Can I? Is what you're going to bring up a spoiler for any of the new content? Because I have not played Royale yet. So if so, I may jump out for this part.
No, I'm not going to actually bring up. I'm not going to bring up Royale. I'm actually just going to. I was not eventually going to what the basic mechanics of.
That's totally
Persona
fine.
5 it works is.
Go ahead.
You get what's called the MetaNav app, which is it's a place that has what are called shadows, which are monsters you fight in. The metaverse is the dungeon crawling basically in this game. So, and that's where you find out you get these beings called personas, which are basically allow you to fight in the metaverse. So it starts off with Joker first getting his one, which is an awesome scene to begin with of how he gets it. Basically, a mask forms on his face, rips it off. You see blood and kaboom. His persona comes up. Then they go for fun, and then they once you get the persona, it's basically dungeon crawling and you be defeating monsters with different moves and stuff like that. So that's the basic premise of how the dungeons work. You get your persona, you have to fight through these dungeons. There are treasures, monsters, all sorts of different things that you got to do to find it, and there are also some puzzles involved with it as well. So how does this portray to the story? For Persona 5, the way the story works for it is you find out through the metaverse that you can do what's called a change of heart. So as we all know, those of us who love doing dungeon crawling, you have the final boss you have to go against. There are, it's technically one condition, but I'll say two conditions for getting to the final boss. The main one is that you have to actually shake the final boss up their real world version self. So what you do is you send them what's called a calling card, basically saying, we know of your crimes, we know what you did, we're going to come and steal your heart, sign the Phantom Thieves, because that's what the group is known as. And that's what basically triggers the whole allowing you to fight against the final boss. And so going against the final boss of each dungeon, again, it's usual RPG style kind of things with different styles of fighting depending on on who the boss is, mixed in here and there. So that's how the fighting mechanic of it works. But fighting mechanic is only one part of Persona 5 and the Persona series in general. The other mechanics are, as it was mentioned, relationship building, and then also improving what are known as, I call them stats. So in this case, it's courage, courage, intelligence, understanding,
guts.
Yep,
empathy.
Guts.
Empathy's the fifth one.
No, it's. Jeez, I should know what all five of them.
I can't tell you. I played Persona 5, the original, when it came out, so I do not remember what those stats were anymore.
So there are different ways you can increase all of these stats. There are side quests. One of the more fun things is that you can actually also take part-time jobs as you continue along as well, and those help you to not only increase some of the stats, but also allow you to earn money, because yes, in Persona 5 you can buy things and whatnot. Then the next fun part is the relationship builder. So there are, oh god, I can't even remember everybody that you can form relationships with.
Everybody.
So basically, my favorite characters that I got to do it were with Makoto Nijima. She becomes the priestess arcana. So you can do, my favorites are Makoto Nijima, Futaba, Morgana was definitely a favorite, Ryuji, and Haru. If I can remember it. Yeah,
I'm just gushing about the waifus of the game, because there's a lot of waifus in that game too.
This is true. This is very true. So that's with that. Another thing with the relationship builder is what are known as arcanas, and I'm not gonna even try to remember all the arcanas either. But
if anybody has ever used a tarot deck, it is all of the major arcana plus one or two that were previously major arcana in the past that are occasionally used to fill extra spots.
Yep. And these are, each character corresponds to a different arcana. And where that comes in play is, again, when you go dungeon crawling and use your persona, each persona is linked to one of the arcana. So depending on how high your relationship rank with each person is, that corresponds back to the arcana and persona. And you can power up personas by fusing them. And actually, a new thing in Persona 5 is that you can also basically sacrifice weaker personas to a stronger persona, and that will power them up. And depending on what your rank is with the relationship builder, you can actually level the personas up really easily. So that's again with social rank and just building up your personas and whatnot. So as you go through the game, you find out that there's a lot of corruption going on, and and you want to actually, and the main quests involve actually changing the people's hearts. So that's why the group calls itself the Phantom Thieves of Hearts, because they can go into the metaverse. They go through the dungeon, they do the change of heart, and that's where basically the final bosses, their real world counterparts, admit to all the crimes and stuff that they've done, and they turn themselves in. But there's always a twist with these games. There's always a twist. You find out as you go through that apparently there's another Persona user who is as to put it bluntly, killing these people, because normally after you defeat the final boss, you get the option of gameplay wise you don't get the option, but story wise there's an option of either killing them off in the metaverse, which will cause what's known as a mental shutdown in the real world, or sparing them and telling them to atone for your crimes. For the most part, the Phantom Thieves are just like, atone for your crimes, admit to your wrongdoings. But there's apparently another Persona user who is killing who is killing some of these people in the metaverse, causing these mental shutdowns. As you're going through, and when you get towards the end, you find out that there's a whole huge thing behind what's causing it. And at the very end, I'll just put it out as it's not to spoil it too much. Your final boss is a huge cliche for JRPGs in general.
It's Necron, isn't it? It's absolutely Necron from Final Fantasy IX.
So here's the thing. The Persona series as a whole, mainly since 3, but like 3 and 4 have had a similar concept of, okay, we're going to beat who we think is the problem. Mm-hmm. We're going to defeat the individual who is the source of all this metaverse stuff, for lack of a better term.
Yep.
And in 3, it's not. In 4, you think you defeat the person who it is,
but it's not.
It's not. And then 5 again, it's also not. But the reasons for it are different in each game.
Yep. I haven't played Persona 3, but I have played Persona 4. And Persona 4 is because you have the two gods of creation, Izanagi and Imanagi.
Tsukuyomi? No?
Nope.
I forget. It's been so long since I played Persona 4.
Yeah. In Persona 5, you get this. You get the so-called god of control called Yaldabaoth, who's basically manipulating everything from behind the scenes, and you don't even find out about Yaldabaoth until the very end. So they pull a FF9 in Persona 5 basically. The other thing that
I hate that trope so goddamn much.
In Persona's 5's credit, I think they do it better here than they did it. It's not as out of the blue as it was in Final Fantasy IX.
That's very true.
If you are someone, how Persona 5 is structured as a game as a whole, if you follow the storylines being told, it is, in a general sense, the youth choosing to rebel against the older establishment because the older establishment is lacking in some cases, unwilling to change in others, and in many cases, as evidenced throughout the game, there is corruption involved. And the older establishment is not perfect, it corrupts, and the younger generation needs to rebel against it to find their own path, which is the overarching storyline of this of Persona 5.
Yep.
And if you follow that storyline as well, and you're a savvy individual as a player, you can probably see the quote-unquote twist coming. Mm-hmm. It still is a very satisfying story beat, though, when you, for lack of a better term, tell the final boss to fuck off.
Basically. Yeah. And another interesting little tidbit with actually all the Persona series is that you actually do get random trivia in it as well. That's all true. So quite a bit of it is about Japanese history, but there's also other different stuff as well, because the main character that you're playing as is still a school kid. So you're playing you're also in high school for a decent amount of time as well. So there's also random tidbits of different trivia, which I thought was also one of the more interesting things about the Persona series. But yeah, it was fun, and as I mentioned before, the Persona games are designed for multiple playthroughs because, again, time management. You can't get everything done in one playthrough. I think for Persona 5 Royal, I did a second playthrough as well, just because it was a lot of fun, and I wanted to get the other story arc in Persona 5 Royal that's different from Persona 5. But yeah, overall, very good series. I like it also as well because there is an anime that is directly related to it that came out around the same time, and it's just a lot of, and yes, also there are many waifus in it, and I of course love that part about it as well. But yeah, very good game. Had a lot of fun with it. I'm currently working on finishing Persona 4 Golden, but yeah, the series is definitely very worth checking out and playing through. And that's my spiel.
I will say this. It's a very long game too. If you're looking for something to play over the summer or fall or quarantine, so for reference, I played Persona 5 when it came out. Way back in 2019 for the US, November 2019.
Yeah. Yep.
Aeons ago.
Yeah. Eons ago, back when dinosaurs walked the earth and we drove around in stone cars powered by our feet.
Well, it's
anyway,
been 5 years since the start of quarantine, so you know.
Yeah. Anyway, I played Persona 5 and I beat it, and that was clocked in at about 100 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe with P5 Royale, I've had people say they've clocked in at about 150.
Yeah,
I've been told right. P5 Royale is about 30% larger than the original.
Yep.
I was going to say, because I'm looking at the release date, Persona 5 had a worldwide April 2017. So it's just like, legends say that Ron is still playing it to this day.
Yeah, but so to briefly, quickly describe it, it is a JRPG with Pokemon-like customization of the personas you choose, alongside a relationship simulator that increases the stats of your Pokemon/personas, with very good animations, and the soundtrack for the game is honestly like one of the best things. This is another really JRPG with some very good music.
What's going on right now between the two of you is like when Deja starts to tell somebody about Monster, her favorite anime, and she word vomits, and then at the end, I explain what it actually is because the people they were talking to don't have any idea.
Yeah. It is a thing where it's like, yes, you can be a fan of the game, but you also have to put it in terms that people understand, because this is a game that is definitely very JRPG.
Yep.
There's a lot of tropes. There's a lot of jokes. There's a lot of very tropey things in this game. However, these are tropes that are executed well and not just thrown in for laughs or for cheap thrills.
It's being done the right way. A trope is a great thing to give a familiar starting point for a character. The issue is when they are never become more than that trope.
Mm.
Like, at the beginning of, like, the whole point of tropes are this well of knowledge that we as fans of movies or video games or whatever we're talking about for their common tropes that give us a base of knowledge when we start, so we're not learning everything from scratch, where we have little things to identify each of these characters with so they feel distinct at the beginning before you grow and learn who these characters actually are. And this game does a very good job of establishing people with these tropes at the beginning, but then allowing them to grow into their own characters as the game progresses.
Yeah, exactly, and it's because again of like the whole relationship builder, and then also just continuing the story. It's a long game, but the reason because of that is because they're literally flushing out every character that basically you meet that has an arcana assigned to them. Pretty much, you literally get the chance to flush out all of them. So that's why it's such a long game.
I was gonna say for that sounds exactly why you said it's a 100-hour game. It's just like
I believe in game it starts in March, late March, early April, and it ends early March of next year.
Early
March of next year.
Yep, it's an entire year cycle that you play through.
And previously, Persona games have been like quote unquote questioning in terms of like when they would occur when you compare it to a real life calendar. Like I believe Persona 5 says it takes place sometime in a quote unquote modern setting. Like early 2000s would be the good analogy there. Persona 4 takes place in a early 2010s, and I believe they don't necessarily give a hard date for Persona 5, but the fans have kind of pieced together it's almost likely to be like 2017 for Persona 5.
From what we gather as fans, each Persona game, as far as we can tell, was intended to take place the year it was released. So 2017 would be Persona 5.
Yeah, exactly.
At the very least, nothing has disproven that it is intended to be the year it's released, and that gives us easy dates to work off of.
And we do know that at least for Personas 3, 4, and 5, they do share the same universe.
Well,
because
they
we have references to either corporations or people in later on in that same.
Well, 1, 2, and 2 Part 2 are all like basically like 1 and 2 are 2 is a direct sequel to 1, and 2 and 2 Part 2 are literally direct sequels with the same characters. After the end of what happened in 2, which I won't spoil for the people who don't know, but the first 1, 2, and 2 Part 2 all explain why 3, 4, and 5 feel like they're in a different world.
Also, probably 6, because let's be honest, if we're following 2 Part 2's beats, then in theory, Persona 6, because let's be honest, there's going to be a Persona 6.
That's
it's a question of when. It's not a question of it's the question of when. Persona 6 is probably also going to be taking place in the similar.
I'm just waiting with Personas because I want to see Nyarlathotep and Philemon playing a role in the series again.
No. Okay, so based.
Yes, I know Philemon is the blue butterfly. I know he makes an appearance in each of the games. He's why you have your powers in 3, 4, and 5. But he has not played a direct role in 3, 4, and 5. And we have basically nothing for Nyarlathotep. Other than a throwaway reference in 3 that there might have been another thing manipulating events, which could have been Nyarlathotep, could have been anything, but it never went anywhere.
Another thing that is worth pointing out is we're throwing out these names. They do tend to use a lot of characters and ideas.
There's a lot of Lovecraftian names you just threw out there.
So it's not just Lovecraftian. We're talking like old Bible names.
There's a lot. There's a lot of it's they take mythology from basically a lot of the they take basically religious mythology from a lot of different things too.
Do they do anything? Do they do anything with that, or are those names just thrown in there because they sound cool? Like
they depending upon some of the names, they do use bad stuff.
Let me do a little base of knowledge here. Okay, Brian, you have Shin Megami Tensei that was the original series, and then you have Persona that is the spin-off. In Shin Megami Tensei, these are it uses the same group of characters. Those are the actual gods. Like, when you hear the Lovecraftian or Lathotep or any of the rest of them, that's what they actually are in Shin Megami Tensei.
Okay.
In Persona, which is connected to Shin Megami Tensei, but most of these are expressions of the human mind. They are things that people believe in, so they've gained power. But other than with a couple of exceptions, which are actual demons from the Shin Megami Tensei world that are in Persona, for the most part, these are all expressions of the human mind. It depends, in each game, it's a little different how they're expressions. But if you get the Metatron on your team, you don't have one of the greatest archangels in biblical history. You have what the humans view it to be.
Oh.
There are a couple of... Sorry, go ahead.
I said okay.
Okay, there are a couple of exceptions. Philemon and Nyarlathotep are two of them. So is Ishtar. Those three are actually from the Shin Megami Tensei universe, and they actually have referenced knowing about Persona in the Prime games, and that's why we know these two sets of games actually are in the same multiverse.
If for nothing else, Persona also has some of the best/worst personas for like monsters.
That's true.
So Brian, there is quite literally, no joke,
a dick in a chariot.
Yeah, dick in a chariot.
yeah, this is true.
All right.
But and as they were going on, it was definitely one of my favorite games, and actually it's probably one of the only games I've also played twice. I've been debating if I want to do another playthrough just to do like another whole relationship builder, but again, the Persona series in general is an amazing game series.
It is PS4 currently.
Yes.
So, but we did just see P4 Golden hit PC.
Yeah,
so
but
there's a non-zero chance we see P5 Royale on PC sometime in the quote-unquote future, whenever that chooses to start up again.
Whatever future even means anymore.
Yeah, and possibly even Switch too, but I'm not sure on that if it'll ever go that way. But I'm pretty sure it'll.
There we go. For reference, for those that listen to the podcast, Ronny posted
the Dick Demon.
Yeah, the Dick Demon.
Basically, but yep.
What do you think, Brian?
How many hentai has that been in?
Rule 34,
do you really want to know?
Rule 34.
Do you really want to know?
Just.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure that's an entire another podcast.
Because I mentioned it earlier, Brian, let me give you like the 10-second what Philemon and frickin' Nyarlathotep are and why I want to see them in later Personas. They're from the earlier games. They're two godlike beings that disagree on the inherent worth of humanity. And all of the Personas for the first two, arguably all of them are, they are just a bet between the two of them to put this human in a scenario where they have to make moral choice, to make choices, and how they make those choices, and whether there is inherent worth in us, or if we are irredeemable at base.
It is a constant tug of war of, is humanity existence worth something on a grand cosmic scale?
Worth the damage we cause, because they won't go. Because even Nyarlathotep won't go, no humans are worthwhile. The question is humanity worth it?
So they're Q.
Sure. Sure.
They're Q if they were not nearly as hands-on or as snarky.
Yeah. So I would those two played a large role in 1, 2, and 2 Part 2, but they basically were eliminated in 3, 4, and 5. Philemon, his representation is a blue butterfly, and he shows up as that blue butterfly in all of the games, but he himself as a character has no role other than it is arguably his voice at the very beginning of the game that introduces you to what's happening. And even in 5, that's not entirely true because it's not actually his voice. It's the Velvet Romatendi, whose name I can't remember.
Igor?
No. What's her name before she split?
Levanzia.
There we go, Levanzia. I'm like I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Levanzia.
I remember the name of the twins. I don't remember them combined.
Yeah. So it's Justine and Caroline are the twins of the Velvet Room,
Exactly.
and then Levanzia is those two combined.
Yes, it's a weird game, Brian.
But it's fun.
Clearly,
Very.
the dick demon has a human nose. Like just
It just there's more and
Brian?
more the longer you stare at it.
There's a like 1 in 20 size statuesque thing you can buy for like $500 of the Dick Demon.
You know what? I'll pass. That'll be a hard pass, I think.
And keep in mind, this is one. How many fucking demons are there? And there's a lot of them that are
fucking
weird.
demon. Nice choice of phrase there. How many fucking demons are there? Very nice turn of phrase.
Yep. And on that note, I will say done because I think we've got a.
You're done. All right. So we're veering heavily into a fucking game. So
it is an excellent game. Anybody out there who's been listening to this that has no idea what the hell we're talking about, I highly encourage you to go and pick up Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal. The Persona series needs far more attention. It is as good as any other major RPG series, but it has not gotten enough love up until 5 came out.
Yeah, 5 is like the one that really got its main attention, especially here in the West.
4 brought it into the mainstream.
Yep.
5 is what made it blow up.
Yeah.
Yep.
If for nothing else, and you're just like, you know what? I don't want to spend 100 hours playing these games. You can watch the anime retellings of them for Persona 4 and Persona 5. They're not bad. They're just very succinct in their storytelling.
Okay, Persona 5's I would actually say is a pretty good retelling. I'm not a fan of the original Persona 4 anime.
Yeah.
The additions they did for Golden, I actually am okay with, but the original to me, I feel like they could have done it much better.
Could have again, but this is also back when 4 was still not necessarily as mainstream as 5 became, because 5 is made Atlas so much fucking money. Here's the thing. We're talking about an anime here, and they are mainstream in Japan. Shin Megami Tensei is spoken on right alongside Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. It's just over here that it wasn't well known and didn't make the money.
Yeah, until Persona 5, Persona 5 is the one that I'd argue that I would say, I don't know if it's better, but it's definitely way up there with Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy with just how good it is for stuff. And I think we got
5 is one of my favorite RPGs of all time, and RPG is the genre I play. I've played, I think, every major franchise, at least some of the games, if not all of them. Persona is up there, and I highly recommend it. Okay, let's move on.
Yep, yeah, sounds good.
All right, moving right along, then. All right, let's break out the handy-dandy, non-pollutionary D6 again.
The math stones.
Yeah.
Ooh, you're breaking out the shiny math rocks. All right, the next one is a 5. It is Spencer. You're up.
Okay, sounds good. So, I'm also going to focus on a game that
is it Resident Evil 4? Are we going to have that discussion again?
No.
No, never again.
Now, I would want a positive podcast about RE4 if I did another one. So today I'm going to talk about a more recent title, Link Between Worlds.
So good.
For those of you who are not aware, this is a game that was released on the 3DS in the late fall, early winter of 2013. It is a direct sequel to A Link to the Past, the Super Nintendo title from 91. It's actually titled as a sequel in the Japanese. In Japanese, the title of the original game is Triforce of the Gods. Yep. So it's directly named a sequel in Japanese. They thought, the developing team thought that the name change for the US market was a little bit catchier because it just sounds a little bit better. And it makes sense. Even though I don't like puns, it is a decent play on words considering the gameplay mechanic that the whole game is focused around.
Yeah.
And also, Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds is too long to fit on a...
Well, Link. I just think Link to the Past 2 wouldn't have sounded as good. I think Link Between Worlds is good.
Yeah, I think that the uniqueness of how you can word the title in a catchy, short way that's like the same kind of syllable breakdown as the original title, without, so you know, it's like it's interesting because, like, we'll get into this a little more later in the game when I'm talking more about the gameplay mechanics, but just to cover it now, like, there's a lot of non-similarity that plays on you expecting there to be similarity because it's a sequel, and I think it does a good job of that.
Before you go on, could I just ask a question? How many people here have played Link Between Worlds?
I have not, and it's always been one of those things where it's like I keep meaning to buy this, and then I just keep forgetting to buy it.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't played it.
Okay, so is it just you and me then, Spencer?
That's
all right. I'm going to bed.
I know the plot. Because I spoiled the fuck out of myself on it.
Oh, that's awful, because that plot, like the I'm not going to say it because I'm not a horrible person, but like
so
the end of this game is the best ending to any Zelda game I've played by leaps and bounds. Like, just blows every other Zelda game finish out of the water.
Link Between Worlds is either my favorite Zelda game or my second favorite. It is my favorite 2D Zelda game
I was going to say I really like Breath of the Wild.
Same, that's a lot of fun.
I have to play Breath of the Wild still, but this is probably number 2 for me at this moment, but I'm still replaying it, so I'll like reevaluate once I'm finished, because what I've been doing is a 100% playthrough in hero mode, which for those of you unaware, hero mode is an increased difficulty playthrough of the game. So you beat the game normally, and then it releases a hero mode. So it's like kind of like the LOZ1 like Master Quest kind of thing, where like, you know, it's just a harder difficulty replaying the same game.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think you correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't actually play hero mode, but the enemies do 4 times the damage, right? Like that was the thing.
Something it might be 3 times, but yeah, it's a significant boost in damage compared to the normal mode. And with the gameplay mechanics that they implemented, it makes it significantly difficult. It might even be the hardest Zelda game out there at this point in terms of like just raw gameplay difficulty. You know, maybe not in like puzzle difficulty, but like in terms of like testing your games, like your gaming skills, it might be the hardest one.
I think I can probably agree with that. I still, like, for me, I would rather do a Link Between Worlds hero mode playthrough than ever play through Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link ever again.
I knew you were going to say that, but that's more of like, it's indirect difficulty. You know, it's like the gameplay doesn't...
It's bad.
The way that the game works is making it difficult more so than like the development team like directly being like, we want to do this to make it harder. It's more like the NES like limited what they could do, and they didn't really adjust for difficulty based on that.
It's a combination. It's a combination of trying to design an action game on the NES alongside the difficulties of rendering the game with proper balancing of mechanics, hitboxes, what have you. The designing of the game is what makes Zelda 2 so hard, not necessarily the action itself.
Yeah, exactly. They bit off more than they could chew, and they didn't really like roll it back like they should have. and that made the game more difficult.
Link Between Worlds in Link Between Worlds in hero mode is hard but fair.
Yes, exactly. And because of what they did with the weapon system in this game, which is instead of how traditional 2D Zelda games play out, where you go into a dungeon, you find the weapon that you need in that dungeon, you use that weapon to get to the part of the dungeon you couldn't get through before, and then defeat the boss of that dungeon. In Link Between Worlds, you start out the game with a more traditional opening, but it's not as intense as the original game's opening, where like someone's calling you for help, you're like, fighting soldiers and stuff like that. In the original, in Link Between Worlds, you're the blacksmith's apprentice, kind of, not technically, but like you're basically his assistant, and you're bringing a sword to the like military captain of like the castle, and you get caught up with the main protagonist, Yuga, who is okay.
You mean antagonist?
Antagonist. Yes, sorry, brain.
It's okay.
Brain, please.
We all have brain farts.
He's an okay villain. I think that he's kind of overshadowed by the end of the story, and like it kind of replaces. That's the more memorable part of like what's going on in terms of the story for me than like his villainy. Although he's not as bad as say like some other bosses from other games.
The Xant from Twilight Princess is a fucking clown.
Well, I was more thinking about the last podcast that you guys did earlier today's boss, but whatever.
Oh, that Necron, that random fuckhead.
So in this game, you rent these items from a guy you meet after your first encounter with Yuga. Yuga knocks you out. He turns the captain into a painting, and then like bounces with the painting. Or no, he turns the captain into a painting on the wall, and then he takes one of the sages, he zaps into a painting, and then he disappears or leaves or whatever. You regain consciousness. This guy named Ravio, who's dressed in this like bunny costume, or like it's like a hat and a suit, but like his face isn't covered, I guess. But like there's like bunny eyes and like bunny ears, and it's like I love it because it's this great just twist on the like traditional bunny ear outfit that you get throughout the game's like history.
Wait, so you're saying it's a guy looking like Dark World Link before he gets the Pearl of Courage?
Basically, yes. He's not as pink as the original Dark World Bunny Link. He's more of a purple, like a violet color. But yes, that's very much like a callback to that. The game does this everywhere. It has these beautiful Easter eggs that like don't like go Metal Gear Solid 4 like in your face levels of
with
fan
PS1 and NES graphics.
I mean,
and flashbacks.
This
Yes.
is. I mean, one thing I don't know if we made clear enough. This is a sequel to Link to the Past. It takes place 100 years later, and they reference you from the original Link to the Past in it.
Yes. It in the timeline, Shudder, the Zelda timeline, but in the timeline itself, it takes place between the Oracle games and Triforce Heroes. So like it's not the direct like timeline sequel to Link to the Past, but like obviously in terms of gameplay, story, all that stuff, it's a direct sequel to Link to the Past.
I just mean when we talk about Zelda and sequels because of the timeline, which by the way, I like the timeline, but I want to make it clear that this isn't like, it just takes place later in the timeline. They talk about your hero, they talk about what you did, they talk about you beating Ganon, they talk about all the stuff from that original game.
And it's not even just that, like in Link's house, he has the Majora's Mask hanging on his wall.
Yes, he does.
Like just on the wall, just chilling there, like hanging. And it's amazing. You can, because in the game, the gameplay mechanic is that you yourself can turn into a painting.
So
and then you can move across walls in a 2D plane. It's an amazing feature. It opens up all these incredible dungeon and puzzle solving mechanics that you could never have gotten from a Zelda game before because of the way that it goes to a straight 2D. Like the camera zooms into the wall. It's not like the same isometric perspective that you have normally. Like, it actually pulls right up to the wall, zooms in on Link itself. You can't see anything else. You just see Link on the wall, and obviously whatever else is on the wall. So between the rental system, which I'll detail in full depth, and the going into the wall ability, like it just completely changes everything. With the rental system, when you start out and you meet Ravio, you can buy all the different weapons that are all the like special weapons, not like sword and shield, but like boomerang, fire rod, ice rod, hammer, bombs, and they have a couple of new weapons that kind of are callbacks to the old medallions. They have a tornado rod that makes a like big gust of wind and like lifts Link up into the air pretty significantly. And then they have what's called a sand rod, and this is a really cool rod. It takes a direct line, whatever way Link's facing, and all the sand in front of him, he lifts it up with the rod and creates like these giant columns. And since Link's ability to turn into a painting and go into walls, you can use these to traverse chasms that you wouldn't be able to traverse normally, or if you're high enough up, you can actually create platforms to walk across to get to certain areas that you couldn't have gotten to before. So these extra weapons just add even more dungeon puzzle greatness to this game. It's so good that you get all this like brand new stuff to such a timeless game that like you have this memory so embedded in because of how like popular that game was when it came out, like the original, what I'm talking about. And once you've collected the 3 medallions or pendants, and unlock the dark world, so to speak, like you would in the original game, you're allowed to purchase these items for a much higher rate. Like for rentals, it's like 50 or 100 depending on the power of the item. Like the lesser strong items like boomerangs, bombs, that stuff you all rent for like 50. And the more powerful items are 100. For purchasing, it's 800 for the lesser items, and then like 1,200 for the higher items.
Only in Legend of Zelda is a bomb the less powerful item as opposed to the bow.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the bow fires the most powerful weapon in the entire universe, which is...
Oh, I'm aware.
So,
I'm aware. I just think it's
a
funny.
fair point, but yeah, it is. It is kind of silly. And
the incendiary device is not nearly as powerful as the literal wooden stick with pointy rock on end.
Exactly.
Blessed by God. Don't forget that part. And the other mechanic that changes is instead of a traditional magic bar like you had in Link to the Past, they have what's called an energy bar. This bar depletes whenever you use any of your magical weapons. So,
if you guys have ever played Breath of the Wild, it's basically the stamina bar from that.
Yep.
Okay. But yeah, any of the items you use, and then also it depletes when you're a picture in the wall. So you cannot stay in the wall forever. You have a limited time frame to do that. So like they play on that as well in some of the puzzles where they make it like you have to go chasms that like are almost the full length of the bar. So like if you're dilly-dallying or like backtracking, you'll just get thrown out because that's what happens. Like once your energy runs out, if you're in the wall, you just pop out wherever you are, and if that drops you into a chasm, oops, or wherever. So that's how the gameplay mechanics all kind of work together in this game. And then the only other like major change is instead of there being tiles that transport you to the dark world and then you use the mirror to transport back to the light world, in this game there are cracks in the like dimension basically between the light world and the dark world, which in this game it's called low rule. So there's high rule, which is your world, and low rule, which is their world. And you you have to turn into a painting and then you travel through the crack. And like there's this cute little animation sequence where it's like this trippy like Pink Floyd background, and he's like, you know, it's like this
the Willy Wonka
music.
Tunnel.
And it you know, it's very silly, and then you pop out on the other end in whichever of the respective worlds. So you can travel between both worlds at any time. You're not limited by your item. You know, you don't need the mirror, so it actually isn't. It's even more. There's even more freedom in this game and open worldness to it, because you're not limited to this, you know, notion of like having to only be able to go to the dark world on these specific tiles, and then, but on the other end, you can come out wherever you want with the mirror going back in. So there's just a lot of this kind of change that brings this freshness and newness to the game, and it brings this like completely new level of appreciation for the whole franchise, really, because of all the callbacks that they're doing on top of everything they're doing with being new to the game as well. And then there's just like, it's so the music does the same thing. There's a ton of tracks that are like either direct like upgrades from the SNES tracks to 3DS track.
The entire game is just a love letter to the original game.
Oh, absolutely. I would say to a lot of just the franchise in general. But obviously mostly to Link to the Past, because, you know, like I said before, it has the Majora's Mask callback, and there's some other lesser callbacks to some of the other titles as well. I won't go through all of them in detail, because, you know, it's better to discover them yourself while you're playing and get that like whoa kind of factor than to be like spoiled on all of them.
This is I'll just say one thing, because Brian will get this since he was in the earlier podcast. Brian, games like this are why I have faith that a sequel that happens many years later can still be good.
Point taken.
This game is also another in the long scroll-like list of games that prove that delays make games better. They do. This game was started in 2009 and was delayed for like 2 years when they dumped all their efforts into the Wii U. So like every time that your favorite game gets delayed and you cry about it on Twitter, you're wrong. It's good for the game. It's good for you. Stop crying. Shut up. Go play something else. There's millions of games out there.
A bad game will be bad forever. A good game will be good forever. It doesn't matter how long you wait.
Yep. Let me tell you.
But a delay doesn't always make the game better.
Does it make it worse? Like, does anyone talk about, like, when we talk about the greatest games of all time, does anyone mention development time?
No.
Ever? No.
I don't care at all. I actually support delays. I'm just going, there are bad games that have been delayed and still were bad when they came out. Oh, yeah,
absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, you know, people that are like, oh, delays are bad and it's awful. Like, the numbers state that that's not the case. Most of the time, honestly, it's good for you.
I don't even care. I don't even care if it's, okay, we're delaying the game because we need more time to finish it. I would prefer to just go, delay the game for an extra 6 months so your people don't have to kill themselves making it.
Well, yeah, obviously, of course, like, you know, we're taking all of that into consideration on top of it, because, you know,
you care about human lives and human rights, whereas other people, by other people I mean shareholders, don't.
Exactly. They're like, profit? That's not how you say profit. So sorry.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's not the shareholders that I see on Twitter ripping these people apart. It's the fans who should know better.
Oh, they are just behind closed doors.
I agree. I'm just saying, like, the fans at least should know better. At least the shareholders have a justification for being shitty human beings.
That's fair.
The fans, not so much.
But getting back to this, what, like, the factors that I was talking about that, you know, make all this amazing are, like, backed up by this just delightful motif that they have, where, you know, just like the whole setup of the artwork and how they make it this top-down perspective, but they tilt everyone to a slight degree so you can still make out everybody's facial features when they're talking to you, so they don't have to like change the camera angles or anything, you know, when you have a conversation with someone, or, you know, you're inspecting stuff, you can still see it without needing to like having to like you know, put assets into like zooming in, or, you know, like pulling the picture up to be able to see it better. And then the other aspect that I feel really puts this game above and beyond is how well it baits you on your experiences from the original game. I won't go into details to spoil, because, you know, I don't want to spoil all these like great moments, but there are so many times in this game where developers know exactly what you're thinking and what you're expecting, and they give you something that's like very refreshingly different. And it's just like so great to have a sequel that knows exactly what made the first game great and changes all the stuff that doesn't take the like core soul of the original game and change that. It takes everything that matters and switches it, flips it, twists it, but all the stuff that they change and make new doesn't counteract the old themes and like styles that were established in the original game. It's so beautiful on like so many different levels of game design, and it blows my mind how well they did this, considering how stagnant the Zelda handheld games had been. You know, like the last release before this was the Ocarina of Time 3D game. So like by this point, I figured Nintendo had just basically given up on the handheld Zelda games, and they were just going to shift to console only. And then they dropped the best title in the entire series, possibly, you know, arguably.
I believe the last handheld title that was a new game, was it Spirit Tracks or was it Phantom Hourglass?
Yeah, it was Spirit Tracks.
And that was a middling reception at best, if memory serves.
Yeah, it was not critically not handled, or critically not taken well, and the fan base didn't really prefer it.
On the other hand, I will say, Spirit, when you said that it was stagnant, I will go, it was nearly dead, but I wouldn't say it was stagnant, because like Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, the two previous ones, and they both tried several new things in it. They were trying to reinvent themselves. They just failed at it.
I think it's also, this is just my opinion, I also feel that with Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, those taking place in the Wind Waker world timeline thingy, that's not necessarily... I mean, Phantom Hourglass is a direct sequel. Yeah, but I'm saying, like, for taking place in that timeline's world is not as... exciting, because Hyrule's gone. Yeah, basically.
I can see that.
There's a lot of weirdness to it, because like even though it's the adult era, both those games have like the more childlike art style. So like, you know, you know when you have adult Link, you want that more like pristine cut like art style that's more
why is it that the child timeline has Twilight Princess in it? Like,
what? Yeah,
what? And the adult timeline is Wind Waker.
Yeah.
The adult timeline is Wind Waker, Hourglass, Spirit Tracks. Like, and all those games have the CD shading, cell style that like is like. I always have associated that art style with young Link, like child Link, and yet it's all of the adult Link titles.
Yep.
At least in the victorious branch of the timeline.
Yeah, and the official chronology. Yeah, I always thought that was weird, but
The child timeline is like what? Twilight Princess.
It's Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Four Swords Adventures is the child. Is the
two
child era.
very dark games, and then Four Swords Adventures, which is like a GBA party game.
And then the downfall timeline is all of the classic Zelda.
Yeah,
basically, and then Triforce Heroes as well.
Just because.
Yeah. I mean, in true order, it's Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Oracles, Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, then Legend of Zelda, and then Adventure of Link. That's the defeated timeline.
And then somewhere we put frickin' why did my brain just completely fart? The one on Switch.
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
That one takes place like apparently Breath of the Wild takes place in a like timeline that is merged all three because like they, from my understanding, like I obviously never played the game so I don't know everything about it, but like I keep track of the timeline at least.
That's why I was like where they want to put it, because like I know like there's stuff from all three timelines in it. You have the Rito, but you still have the Zora. You have proof that there was a Great Sea, but you also have like there's stuff from all three timelines at once.
So basically, what they're saying with the timeline for Breath of the Wild is that eventually, at some point, they all eventually merge. They all reach the same pinnacle point of Hyruleans making the Divine Beast defeat Ganon. And then 10,000 years later, Ganon's starting to come back.
Did they actually say that though? Because that's the problem. Like that's the theory, and I know the theory.
Well, okay, so like from what I've read,
made a statement.
From what I've read, that they've said officially that Breath of the Wild takes place like, you know, it takes place in all the timelines. That's basically what they're saying.
I was gonna say if the merge timeline is actually official, I'm on board with that. But as far as I knew, last time I checked, they hadn't made an official announcement, and we were just speculating.
I honestly can't remember. I just remember that Breath of the Wild is like the far future of all three of those timelines, and I thought they had merged.
I just googled it, and the top thing is Eiji Aonuma explains why Breath of the Wild's timeline placing must remain secret. So. I'm gonna go back in. I'm gonna go in.
They don't even wear though. They don't even know.
My guess would be that they don't want to come out because they intend to have the merging be an actual game.
Probably.
But either way, they haven't announced it yet. That's what I think it would be because it has stuff from each of them. But we also have to keep in mind we don't want to make too big a deal of it having aspects of each of them because there are games that are in a specific timeline that still have references to the other timelines. Like, this isn't the only game that does that. This is just the one with the most references. Which could just be they were trying to make this the iconic modern Zelda because they needed the Switch to do well, so they put a lot of references into other stuff.
And I think, as memory serves, the current fan rumor is we're probably seeing the Twilight stuff come back with
Breath of the Wild 2. I've heard that too, and I would love that. Honestly, they could be explaining its timeline placement in Breath of the Wild 2, and that's why they don't want to mention it. That would make perfect sense.
The whole timeline thing is silly. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is, but I've always been
it's
like...
It's something I like.
I've just never been a big proponent of, like, retconning something like that, like... if that was part of Ocarina of Time, great, whatever.
Here's the thing though. They intended the games to be sequels to each other. Like Zelda was never meant to be like Mario where everything is standalone. Like they directly go Adventure of Link is supposed to be a sequel to the other one. The Link to the Past was supposed to be a prequel to all of them. Like, so they always intended them to be connected. They did not intend them to have three timelines.
Yeah,
but
I think Ocarina of Time as good of a game as it is, when you introduce time travel into your genre, it tends to fuck with shit.
Yeah, but it's not like to me. It's not like with Final Fantasies when people are trying to connect all the games together. Like that can be fun, but that's not intended. But with Zelda,
right, yeah, no, they definitely. Obviously, this is all one one universe or planet or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like this is all one congruent, fluid, organic story that's spanning over thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. However they want to cut it up. In between each game, but it's
Malice's hatred will never die.
I think it's silly to have a game where you don't even they didn't even when they re-released Ocarina for the 3DS, they didn't even add a cutscene if you die to Ganon, where it's Ganon takes over. Yeah,
they could totally have They could
just
totally
to acknowledge the fact that this is a part of the timeline, because it's so silly to me to have Ocarina of Time and then you have no way of ever having Ganon winning being an acknowledged part of the timeline in any scenario.
I feel like the reason they didn't do that, and I would love if they did that, I feel like the reason they didn't do that is because you have a portion of the Zelda fan base that hates timeline theory and the concept of it, and you would probably get a lot of kickback from them. Meanwhile, you can just do just beautify it and make it look great, and then everyone's happy.
Yeah, but I mean, I wasn't happy.
Yeah,
because I don't like that game, but whatever.
Okay, I meant
this is why you don't introduce time travel into your franchise, ladies and gentlemen. Let this be a lesson for you all.
Chrono Trigger is the exception, not the rule, guys.
Yes.
Chrono Trigger is the best. Thank you.
I'll add in one thing though, just because I haven't really said it. I'm actually currently working on Breath of the Wild myself, but I think the last Zelda game I played was Ocarina of Time, way back when I was on Game Boy Color, way back when that
DS.
Yeah. The one thing
it's a handheld with color. No.
The one thing I have found that I have realized, and I actually saw my older brother playing through, not the original, but one of the Zelda games for the SNES, because he actually bought a second-hand SNES. And
that's Link to the Past.
The one thing I remember is that the game is very unforgiving to you if you aren't familiar with how the combat situation works. I've experienced that myself quite a few times with it.
Yeah, the game will kill you.
Many times.
That'll happen.
I suppose one thing I will say about Link Between Worlds, as I said, it's one of my favorite Zeldas. It might be my favorite Zelda. But I will say one thing to anyone listening. If you didn't like Link to the Past, this will not change your opinion. You are not going to like this if you didn't like Link to the Past. Yes, it has differences, but there are not enough differences to change your opinion if the original was not a game you would have enjoyed.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's still the same style of game for sure. Yeah. It's just not. It's not like the kind of sequel that you would normally get, where it's here's the same dude doing the same stuff, except he's a little more powerful, and this time there's a little bit more powerful enemies, and the stakes are a little bit higher.
Because you got the three groups in Zelda, where you have the people who exclusively play the 3D games, the people who exclusively play the 2D games, and then people like me that play anything with the Zelda name in it. And I kind of feel like that third group that I'm in isn't the largest of the three groups, because I feel like I run into more people that only play one or the other than I do people who play both.
You would think that the largest group would be the one that just I am a Zelda fan in general. It's no,
that's
you're
what
either
I would think. But that's
you're either a SNES and NES fan, or you're a SD4 and Switch player. Just why can't we just like the genre for
an NES, SNES, and mobile? Because remember, most of the 2D titles have been on the
Yes, true.
Game
Yeah,
Boy
yeah. The
systems.
Game Boy's color and the 3DS.
I mean,
so.
come on, like in most people's minds, like the handheld games are like usually the top games.
Yeah.
Like we have the Ocarina of Time blinded people, which you're gonna get, but like Link's Awakening, Link Between Worlds, Oracle,
Minish Cap.
Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say it was like the other one was eluding my brain because I haven't played that one, but I hear nothing but great things about it.
It's one of the best. It's really good.
And like Four Swords isn't like anything amazing, but it's a really fun it's probably one of the better multiplayer games that you can play on a Nintendo handheld system.
I was gonna say for me, my top 3 Zeldas shift around, so I can't say which one is the number one, but my top 3 are Link Between Worlds, Breath of the Wild, and Twilight Princess, all for very different reasons.
I'm not a fan of Twilight Princess. My top 3 would be in not specific order, but just Link Between Worlds, Link's Awakening, and then Link to the Past. I'm much more a fan of 2D style than the 3D style.
My 3 are Link to the Past, Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild.
Same, almost the same as me.
Well, there you go.
My disdain for Twilight Princess is a whole nother topic, so I'm not going to dive into that one.
Fair enough. So, are you good, Spencer?
That's basically it. I don't think there's really anything else to cover that wouldn't be a spoiler. So,
all right.
If anybody else has some other thoughts, I'd say that's pretty good.
I will say just before we leave, without spoiling stuff, I really appreciate the original characters in this. Hilda is wonderful. Ravio is just goofy enough, and Yuga is one of the first truly original villains in Zelda.
Oh yeah, he's easily one of the standout Zelda villains, but he's not on the level of greatest villains of all time, but he's definitely a breath of fresh air in the franchise in terms of an interesting villain that isn't just this is just Ganon 972.
Which is funny because he basically is Ganon. He's Ganon from a parallel world, but they basically went, well, we could go in a completely different direction, and they did, and it was wonderful.
Yep. No, like I said, this game is a must-own for any 3DS owner. This game is a must-play for any Zelda fan, and honestly, it really just should be played by everybody. It's a masterpiece. It's one of the best games ever made, and you're only doing yourself a disservice by not playing it. They should re-release this on the Switch, to be honest, but it's probably not age enough to get a re-release yet, but I really think that it needs to be in a system that has more sales so that more people can play it.
A system that has more sales? It's the 3DS DS line has more sales than the Switch at this point. I would love to have it on the Switch.
You can't combine the DS sales though, because this is a 3DS game. It's not like you can fire this up on a DS. That'd be something.
Okay. Point taken. I'd have to look, but I know the 3DS also did very well.
It did. It didn't do as well as the Switch is doing though. The Switch is the Switch is one of the highest selling systems of all time at this point.
I would rather have it up on the Switch just because it's a newer console, and honestly, the Switch is the best console of all time to me, and I'd rather have every game on it. So I will never turn down a Switch port. I'm biased.
There you go. There you go.
Just
Get on it, Nintendo. Get off your asses.
Come on. Let's do this.
But yeah, that's it. That's basically my summation of this amazing game that apparently more people need to be playing. Because if only 2 out of the 5 of this podcast group has played this, that's a shame. That's
okay. There are still 25 million more 3DSs out right now than there are Switches. So the Switch will eventually surpass it, but it has not yet.
Yeah, that's just because of the like 70 trillion different models that they released.
I know.
I'm sure if you
agree.
actually measured that in terms of like unique owners, that number is probably like a third of that. But yeah.
Okay. I won't disagree with that, but I'm just going off. All I was doing was going off of numbers, and I'm like, I know
that's fair.
I know the 3DS hasn't, the Switch hasn't beaten the 3DS yet. It's going to. Don't get me wrong.
We'll have to wait for the Nintendo Switch XL, the Nintendo Switch 2DS.
I'm waiting. Yeah, the next Switch release is going to be a dual screen Switch with 4 Joy-Con attachments. And it's going to have a cardboard cutout Labo for you.
Because
They ported The World Ends With You too early. They could have just waited.
We're already at Switch and Switch Lite, so you know we're already on the way.
I'm not at Switch Lite. I ignore that. That's nonsense. You stop it.
There's going to be a Switch Pro. You know that's coming.
Yep.
I'm forever going to hate Nintendo for giving Pokemon on the Switch Lite for the exclusive. I will forever hate them for that. And then to give Animal Crossing the full model release.
Well,
knife in the wound.
I was gonna say, well, Animal Crossing did end up being the more successful of the two.
Really?
So maybe they made the right decision.
Irrelevant.
Yeah, that's it. Spencer's just like, no, that's it. Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, but they'll make more money off the online service for
absolutely.
Pokemon. So
Yeah.
with all the DLC and everything.
All right. So we are almost at an hour and a half, and we've only gone 2 out of the 5 people here. So
Mine will be quicker when we get to it.
all right. Well, I am going to. I think I'm going to stop the first half here because I know that one of the halves is going to have 3 people and one's going to have 2. So that it's fine by me. So we will.
No, just cut somebody off like mid-sentence and be like, all right, we're going to stop right here and we'll be right back.
And on that fun. All right. So you are listening to our free play episode, our second free play episode of 2020 here. So when we get back, it'll be Ron, Ronny, and myself, although in what order remains to be seen. So you, while we're taking a break, you go out there and buy a 3DS right now and get A Link Between Worlds right now and Persona 5. Go get them right now. Right now.
The gods of the Triforce are watching you. They are shame.
They're shamed. All right. We'll be back, everyone. welcome back to our free play here on downloadable content. We're all still here. We all played A Link Between Worlds, and now we're just loaded with rupees. Everyone is rich. Because
If only.
If only. Yeah. Just mow the lawn and just watch his rupees spring forth. But all right. So we are down to myself, Ron, and Ronny for our various free play topics. So let's break out a D4 now for this. So I'll be 1, Ron will be 2, Ronny will be 3, 4 is a roll again, and 4. Okay, I'm rolling it again. And I'm rolling it again. And I'm rolling it again.
Max damage, massive missile. Yes!
Yes! No, I rolled a 2. Ron, you're up.
All right, so I'll go for the low-hanging fruit here because I have 2 topics in mind. One is low-hanging fruit. The other one is me ranting about Magic the Gathering for 10 minutes. So,
Well, I could join you on that one, but sure.
Yeah.
all right. So I'm going to go for low-hanging fruit, which is I don't believe we've talked about it since it happened. The PS5 was finally revealed.
Oh, right. Yeah, that happened.
The giant router? Yeah.
Yeah, the router.
The giant router from 2010.
Yeah, I mean, I swear Time Warner gave me something that looked like that several apartments ago. But yes, go on.
On the other hand, it probably has one of the, like, that was probably the best release trailer I've ever seen in terms of games.
Yeah, so for those who are not aware, and who have been living under a rock since February 15th.
It is possible. It is possible. We've been...
Yes. The PS5 was finally revealed, and we also got a slew of games that will be on the PS5. So I'm going to read off here from a list of games that were revealed that will be available on PS5. Horizon Zero Dawn will have a sequel. It's going to be called Horizon Forbidden West, and it's going to be on PS5. We have like a DLC content, mostly DLC content for Spider-Man. It's going to be Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Yep. And I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that I would rather have Miles Morales than Peter Parker in 100% of everything Spider-Man, because Peter Parker is a very boring character at this point. I liked him before, but they have not allowed him to have character development in 50 years.
It's also a case where for Peter Parker, Marvel feels the need to reset him back to quote-unquote status quo whenever they do give him character development for some goddamn reason.
Yeah, every 5 years they have to reset him back and take away all development he ever had. That's my problem.
I don't stand for this Peter Parker negativity at all. He's a wonderful character. Y'all need to shush.
Whoa, what the hell happened to your voice there?
The problem with Peter Parker is not that he's a bad character. It's that Marvel does not allow him to maintain the growth he has earned.
He's great for 5 years, and then they take everything away from him again, and you go back to stock, and that gets frustrating after enough years.
Yeah,
I liked him. He was one of my favorite characters for a long time, and at this point, I can't deal with it every time that they keep bringing him back to normal. So, by all means, give me Miles Morales. Yeah. Give me frickin' Spider-Gwen. Give me Silk.
The problem is that Spider-Man's been around for 50 years now at least, and it took Peter Parker about 20 years to get out of high school and college, and he's been stuck in this like mid-20s, late 20s, like, what am I going to do with my life for the past 30 years? They have not allowed character growth to remain on him. Keep in mind that in that 30 years, he has dated Mary Jane, married Mary Jane, made a deal with the devil to negate said marriage to bring back Aunt May, who was dying of cancer, got a company, literally bought the Baxter Building from the Fantastic Four, went bankrupt, had his mind taken over by freaking Doc Ock. Got his body taken back. Doc Ock became a superhero.
I love that, by the way. That whole Superior Spider-Man line that is the best thing they've done in the Spider-Man 1 in the modern day. But you want to know what? We should probably get back to the PS5.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm just stating what they've done in 30 years, and then he's back to status quo.
I'm okay with this becoming a Spider-Man topic.
That's fine. So GTA 5 is going to be on PS5 again because Rockstar's don't know what the fuck they want to do for GTA 6. Resident Evil's got a game on PS5 that may or may not have Chris Redfield being a bad guy.
Let's be clear about one thing when you say GTA 5, though. They've said that it will be preloaded on every PlayStation 5.
Ugh.
You don't have to. I haven't played a GTA since GTA 1. So it's now going to appeal to me, but let's be honest here. That is going to appeal to a lot of people.
That will appeal to a lot of people. I think the last GTA game I played was San Andreas on PS2. Anyway, Resident Evil Village, which is some sort of
great.
It's creepy Resident Evil stuff. Maybe Chris Redfield's a bad guy. Who the hell knows?
I love how Capcom through the entire life of the Resident Evil series, Capcom has never settled on an actual design for Chris.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now he's like this very bulky, like late 30s guy wearing like more body armor than is reasonable. Looks
like Jesus, Chris, lay off the HGH anyway.
Yeah. We have Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which also introduced a new female Ratchet persona thingy, which the internet immediately turned both into a waifu and then looted in about 6 hours.
Thank you, internet.
We have Gran Turismo 7.
Wait, what did you say? I missed that one.
The female like Ratchet that they introduced in the Ratchet was waifu'd and then looted in about 6 hours.
Did it take that long? I'm surprised.
Gran Turismo 7, which again, PS5, Gran Turismo, pretty graphics, pretty. We have a Project Athia from Square Enix, which just looks like a very weird...
Yeah, I don't even remember which one that was. I know I saw it because I watched the whole thing, but I don't even... Yeah. It did not retain enough in my mind. I don't remember what that was.
All I know is that it's Square Enix and that it's a PS5 exclusive, which means it probably doesn't come out to like 2023.
At least.
Yeah. NBA 2K21, because NBA. We've got remastering of Demon's Souls.
Yeah, and that's a big freaking deal.
Yeah, that's actually admittedly a very big deal. We also have Deathloop.
For half of my friends, that when this happened, that was the big takeaway from it is we're getting a Demon's Souls remake.
Yeah. And remastering, remaking, whatever. It is admittedly a very big deal. Deathloop, which honestly, I like the concept of it. I also like how the main characters look. Or the main character and the main villain, if that makes sense. Or if they're both characters, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hitman 3. More Hitman. Yay. Astro's Playroom, which is, I'm guessing, some sort of VR game. Bug Snacks, which is a creepy Octodad, made by the same people who did Octodad. Pragmata, which looks like it's going to be in the vein of Kojima, freaking creepy, weird.
It definitely
sci-fi
looks
stuff.
like something out of Kojima.
Yeah, I'm watching the trailer for Pragmata. My first thought is, did Kojima already agree to make a new game for the PS5 while making Death Stranding?
Yeah.
It's coming out of Capcom, no less. It's coming out of Capcom, which is weird.
More Norman Reedus.
Yeah. Little Devil Inside, Solar Ash. Solar Ash is made by the person who did Hyper Light Drifter. So that should be...
And it's basically Hyper Light Drifter in 3D.
Yeah, which I'm fine with.
Yeah, isn't there supposedly a game coming out that you go around that you actually play as a crime-solving cat or something?
That's actually one of the games. That's
Yep. I couldn't tell you what its name was.
It's Stray.
There we go.
Stray, that's right.
I'm like, I clearly remember the video, but I couldn't remember the title.
Jet the Far Shore looks like to be a slow sci-fi space exploration game. Ghostwire Tokyo, which we saw previously, is actually going to be some sort of VR.
That's one
game.
A lot of people were waiting for information on, and it still looked like that is probably one of the things I am more excited for.
Yeah.
Out of this.
Goodbye Volcano High, which is like anthropomorphic dragons or
I'm gonna
dinosaurs.
play that.
Anthropomorphic dinosaurs about to get blown up by the comet.
I'm gonna play the crap out of that game.
Kenna Bridge of Spirits, which looks like a.
Oh my god!
It's cute. It looks cute.
It's like a cross between Ghibli, Breath of the Wild, and frickin' what's it called, Pikmin.
Yeah.
Like that is single-handedly like that is the thing I am most excited for coming out of this.
I got to go look at these trailers because they sound really good. I don't.
Yeah.
See
We have Oddworld Soulstorm. We have another Oddworld game coming out, which is surprising because I don't think I've played this franchise ever, so I didn't even know it's still around.
Okay. Here's the really, really like 20-second rundown. They were making games. They were doing very well. They got fucked by their publisher. They left the games industry entirely because of that. They had no interest. Then what's it called? Crowdsourcing became a thing. They went and kickstarted the Oddworld New and Tasty, which is a full 100% remake of the first Oddworld game. It did gangbusters. It has done amazing both when they did that, but also sales-wise, and now they are using that to continue the series. Then what you're talking about, Soulstorm, is a remake of the second Oddworld game, but only about half of it is, and the other half is going to be completely original.
Okay. Sackboy game. It's called Sackboy: A Big Adventure. It looks like it's going to be like a Mario Party. Not Mario Party, but like Mario platforming sort of stuff. Destruction All-Star, which is like wrestling personas meets car destruction derby. Returnal, which looks like it's going to be a sci-fi horror game. Think like Dead Space plus time looping sort of thing. And then there was Stray, which is the cat.
Yeah, the crime-solving cat.
Yeah, crime-solving cat in a world of robots.
1 second. Pause you for 1 second, just because I know somebody will yell at me for this. I was actually incorrect. New and Tasty was not kickstarted. They did it without a publisher, but they were able to get the money together to do it themselves. They talked about kickstarting it.
Okay.
But they did not end up.
Yeah. Other things we know, I think some of these are going to be cross-platforming, so they're going to be on both PS4 and PS5. I was going to run down the list here quickly. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Man 21, Scarlet Nexus, Godfall, Outriders, Destiny 2's, obviously, Fortnite, obviously, Lord of the Rings Gollum, Watch Dogs Legion, Rainbow Six Siege, Rainbow Six Quarantine, Gods and Monsters, Battlefield 6, NBA Live 21, and that's pretty much it as of right now. So
that was a list of names.
It's a lot of listed names, and in terms of games that are coming out for PS5, there's a lot of crossover in terms of like genres and things that might be coming out.
Here's the thing, though. When we talk about a new system, almost always we complain in retrospect that there wasn't a big enough launch lineup. There wasn't enough games when it came out. The first year was a drought. It took 2 or 3 years before the system hit its stride. And the PS5 seems like it's going, no, there's going to be shit for you to play.
Well, it's not just that. It also sounds like there's going to be native emulation for at least PS1 through PS3.
Okay, that's something I'd like. That is still absolutely rumor. There is absolutely no confirmation. The only thing they've given us is that they will have games from the PS4 that are backwards compatible. They've said nothing about 1 through 3 yet. I want them to. I swear to God, I'm praying that they do it, but there's still no confirmation of that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I swore that I swore I saw something that says Sony is applying for a patent
Yep.
on PS1 through 3 emulation.
They did that a year and a half ago, I believe, but they've applied for patents for similar things in the past that never came through.
Okay.
So that is not necessarily a thing that says that the PS5 is going to have this. I hope they are. I hope that's what they're using it for, but that is not a confirmation.
Mm-hmm. And then we still don't know a price on the damn console. And we also need to keep in mind, too, that we have two versions of a console. We have a digital-only version, which looks like a router, and then we have the PS5 with a disc reader, which looks like a router that has a heat bulge on the bottom of it.
I was going to say, if they have the backwards compatibility for all the systems, this will be a day one purchase for me. If they do not, then I probably will not pick the system up until Final Fantasy VII Part 2 comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which will probably be my game that forces me to pick it up.
Yeah.
Plus, also,
So,
you can't forget.
Yeah, and so that's. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah. As also with every new console release, there's probably gonna be some bugs and stuff and whatnot that they're gonna have to be like patches released later on after it gets released as well, because people are gonna find glitches and stuff like that here and there. I mean,
that's normal.
Yep.
They haven't released a price on these damn things yet.
I'm saying 500 plus.
Yeah. Well, they have not even released a price for the Xbox One X either.
Nope.
Series X. Sorry, Xbox Series X.
Yeah. Right now they're playing chicken to see how long they can just stare at each other without putting a price out, because neither of them wants to be the first one to do it. Because then when one of them puts a price out, if they are castigated for it and it's too high, the other one can always change what they're going to do it at so that they're not the ones, so that they look like they're not the bad guy.
Yeah. It's also a thing, too, that we know the specs of the Xbox Series X. Like, we actually know the hardware specs of it, whereas we still are not too certain on the PS5's ones, outside of their some sort of proprietary SSD and chip reading to help speed up read-write, I believe. There's a very real chance that when these consoles' prices do get listed, I personally am expecting the PS5 to cost $650, like $600, $650 price range, and then the Series X to be like $550 on the cheapest console and like $1,000 for the most expensive one.
I was gonna say you're going way higher than I'm expecting, because I think I don't think that the game populace is ready for those prices yet, even if that's what they want to do. And I don't think I think they're going to gradually push the price up rather than do a giant jump right now. I do expect it to be more expensive than the PS4 and Xbox One were when they came out. Yeah. But I don't think I expect 650.
The reason why I'm thinking 600 or 650 for the PS5 is I don't see how you can try and sell a quote-unquote next-gen console that is markedly better than the PS4 and the Xbox One X without there being a massive increase in the like GPU or CPU. And don't know if you've looked at PC prices recently, but PCs are expensive.
I know they are.
A 2070 is like $800 or something like that.
But PCs have always been expensive, and they've been able to get their prices down more because they're buying massive amounts. They're having them pumped out by factories that are just doing that, so they can lower the prices. That doesn't mean it's not going to be more. I get it.
But the reason why I'm saying it's going to cost more is because they are using like literal things where we can look at specs on based on like for the Series X specifically. Like we know that what they're using because they're using computer terminology, and we know that there's similar terminology for the PS5. They just haven't said what the actual terminology is going to be. They haven't actually given us the hard numbers.
I'm expecting 550 is the highest I expect to see them go with these base systems.
My personal thinking is that the PS5 that Sony wants you to buy is going to be the one without the disc drive. That is the one I think they're going to be pushing. That is the one I expect them to have be cheaper than the one with the disc drive.
It's going to be cheaper than the one with the disc drive, but I don't expect that to be I don't expect there to be a significant price difference between the two.
I think it'll be at least $100 difference. I think that they're going to really try and push
the Blu-ray is. Yeah, they're going to be pushing the digital only thing hard, and I feel like if they do $550 for digital only and $650 for the Blu-ray disc drive, that not only would that I find that reasonable, that would also be a reason to push toward the digital only.
I think if they do that, they are honestly, I don't disagree with you that I could see them doing the digital $100 cheaper. But I feel like if they do the digital being $100 cheaper, they are going to get castigated for. Like, this is going to be like that year when everyone went, "Oh yeah, fuck Xbox." Like, that's what they're going to get for the PlayStation for that. I don't disagree that I think they could do that. They definitely have a vested interest in getting people to switch to digital only, but I definitely think that is going to turn hard on them when they do it.
And I get why they want to, because making a Blu-ray, installing a Blu-ray player is not cheap. And I know why they are making it is because, as much as we would like to think that we're a 21st century country, we still have people living in Montana and Arizona and all that shit that are living in the boonies that are living on satellite internet. And satellite internet is dog shit.
What, 30% of America does not have broadband internet? That's the number I believe I saw recently.
I mean, to be fair, even average American internet is not that great if you're comparing to other countries. So
we are not at the point where digital only is even viable across the whole country. Not even talking about the entrenched people who just prefer having a physical copy. Like, just the viability of everybody in America, or at least the majority of people in America, having that ability. Like, 30% don't have the internet to be able to do this properly.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't be surprised that they're doing the split solely because they don't think that America is caught up enough to be able to do digital only.
We can't.
Like, I totally
I'll tell you right now, we can't.
And
I totally can't. Absolutely not.
And the people this is going to hurt, the people who are most likely to have an issue with to be in an area that doesn't have strong internet, are going to be people. A lot of them are going to be lower class people who are going to have an issue spending an extra $100 on the system. So you want to know what? They're going to give it a pass. Mm-hmm. And I don't see, like,
especially, or they're going to get a pass, or they're going to switch to Series X when Series X is going. If Series S launches like a disc drive option for like $550 or $600, they'll get the Series X instead.
I mean, it honestly, there is no reason other than them wanting to get people off of the disc for the Blu-ray for the one with the Blu-ray player to be more than $50 more, because I can get a Blu-ray player for under $100 right now, and that counts the markup that the stores are putting on it. There's no way they can't have a player that only adds $50 to the cost. If they do it for $100, that is them saying, we want to force you onto the digital.
Yeah, and they do. Yeah, no, like, that's exactly why that's going to happen. Like, that's totally what they want. Like, and every Sony move over the last 5 years has screamed that they want to go to digital only, but they can't.
Do you remember when Xbox said that they were going to have the permanent, you had to be connected to the internet, you had to have a constant internet connection to use it, and how bad the kickback is going to be? This is going to be like that.
Yeah, but that's a little different. That's a little different, though, because, I mean, it's one thing entirely to, force everybody to download everything. It's another thing entirely to force everyone to always have an internet connection to be able to use the device. Because, even if your internet's great, it still might not be a great connection.
I'm not saying they're the same issue. I'm saying the level of kickback I expect to be the same.
No, yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. I disagree because I think they're different enough that I don't think that there's going to be as big of a pushback.
Also, keep in mind, Sony's already said, even if you buy the PS5 with the disc, you're still going to have to download the game off the disc to get the best loading out of your game, because it is quite simply just due to the limitations of a physical disc laser compared to it being just ones and zeros on an SSD.
That's how it worked on the PS4.
Yeah, and they're just saying that again. Like, listen, they've already said that again. Like, listen, we're having the disc drive be an option for you. You're still going to have to download that game off the disc onto the SSD to get the most out of the PS5.
Yep.
And that's fine. People are going to be okay with that because as long as they're not forced to have to do it via the internet, which is the key. Like,
yeah. Like,
yeah,
if they only have to use the internet, if they only have to use the internet for like the day one DLC patch, that's fine.
Okay,
exactly,
let's do it this way. Here's why I think this is going to be as big a deal, and that is when Xbox went, you're going to have to have an internet connection because the system's going to have to call in. That is a very small amount of information at calling in that can be done on less than broadband ones. That won't prevent someone entirely unless they have no internet.
Well, right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not about the badness of your connection. It's just like, sometimes you just won't, your internet drops or like stuff like that. Like, where you have like, oh, my modem needs to be replaced and I don't have one for a couple of days. And it's like, oh, well, now I can't use my system at all. Wonderful.
But with this other one, you're going to have 30% of people that can't download the games, so they're going to be locked out of the system they can probably afford. And that's going to, like, that 30% is going to be very loud, and a lot of people that aren't in that 30% are going to be right alongside them.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, like, a lot of that percentage is probably just Switch base anyways. So, like, they probably already have a Switch and are probably just going to stick with their Switch.
I was going to say, I would entirely disagree with that. Like, I don't want to make any assumption of that, because most of this is based on regions, and I don't think you can go, oh, because you live in this region of the country, you're a Switch gamer.
Well, no, I'm not saying by region. I'm just saying, like, the Switch, like, all the issues that you're talking about, the Switch is, like, fixes those issues. Like, it's,
but I'm just saying, like, the issue with the issue with you don't have broadband internet in your area, like, that is just an area issue. Like, I have a friend right now who basically doesn't game anymore because of that, because they have no internet, and, like, they do stuff with their PS4, but they can't deal with any of the downloading stuff, and if the PS5 goes that way, they're not going to play anymore. A lot of people I know who live in Alabama, that live in Missouri. These are, like, I can name these people, I just don't want to on a podcast. Brian knows who some of these people are. Will not be gaming anymore because they live in areas that do not have strong enough internet to be able to do that. And they don't have $650 to spend on a system. They can probably swing $5 or $550. But even that would be stretching it. And I think for a lot of people, we're getting to the point where the systems are getting to the point where people are already stretched financially to even be able to afford them where they are. And then jacking an extra $100 onto it if you want to play physically, but you may not have a choice in that matter. Yeah, that's really fucking shitty, and that is going to get a lot of kickback from the populace. I guarantee it will. I will bet you that it will. Like,
yeah, and again, just to restate this for the audience listening at home, there's no information on this. This is just purely speculation on our part about the price points and this massive difference between the two. But this is just what we are saying could happen. So, any other questions, comments about the PS5 and the wacky design of the system and the boomerang for the controller?
I always felt like the PlayStation controllers have not been that good, but this is just another drop in that bucket to me.
I don't know. PS4 was fine for me. I like PS4's design.
Sorry.
I've just always been against the structure of the sticks being more centered in the controller.
Meanwhile, that is exactly what I want, and I hate every controller that's not like that.
This is just a continuing saga of what Spencer likes, Ronny doesn't, and vice versa.
I prefer my favorite controller at this point is the Switch Pro controller, but I prefer the PlayStation controller 100% of the time over the Xbox controllers.
Yeah. So that's all I got. And then if we have time afterwards, I'm sure myself and Ronny can rant about Magic the Gathering for 10 minutes.
Yeah. I will say one thing about the PS5, and that is they are lucky that people are buying them for the games and not because of the visuals, because I may be in them. I know not everybody feels this way, but I think it looks terrible design-wise, and the controller, like, it looks ugly. Like, dear God.
I'd say that the new Xbox looks worse, but that's just...
I'm not comparing the two. They can both look terrible. I'm not going to say which is worse. I'm just saying I think it looks terrible.
One looks like a router from 2006. The other one looks like a bomb about to get set off in CS:GO.
We shouldn't be comparing which looks worse. That's not a... We don't want to race to the bottom with our systems.
And then I just solved this entire problem by owning a decent gaming PC. But anyway, the one thing I will say about PS5, and then we can move on, is that when I saw the Game Informer article about the first reveal and whatnot, my first thought when I saw the list of games, I'm like, Ratchet and Clank, Oddworld, Hitman, Grand Theft Auto 5. What year is this?
What year is this?
It's no year and every year at the same time.
I was gonna say it's the PS3 and the PS4 release title launches almost verbatim.
Oh my God! It's just Anyway,
I mean,
to be fair, Horizon Zero Dawn is a really good game. It's finally on PC. It's totally worth the purchase.
I cannot. It comes out August 7th. That is one of the 3 PS4 exclusives that I would play if I owned a PS. Those are the 3 games that I want to play for the PS4.
Yeah, and Brian, the second one's coming out probably about 6 months later, because let's face it, Final 7 Remake's going to hit PC almost immediately after that 1 year embargo list.
I've been wanting to play Horizon Zero Dawn, and finally it's getting a PC release. The other 2, we'll see. So
you are so stubborn on your PC releases.
I find that for budgeting, if in an age now where console exclusivity is virtually extinct, personally, there is no reason for me to buy separate consoles anymore.
Excluding Nintendo, obviously.
Extinct, like Nintendo doesn't exist.
Well, Nintendo doesn't really exist in the conversation we're talking about, because like we're talking about like the highest end of console gaming in terms of like graphical power and speed and processing and all that stuff, which the Switch is not. That's not their focus at all.
Well, yes, but he literally said console exclusivity no longer exists, and I went, Switch is a current gen console. Probably the current gen console that's done the best.
Well, you didn't let me finish the point. So my current video gaming setup is basically PC and whatever the latest Nintendo console is. That is it. So as far as, because obviously we are not going to see the big Nintendo IPs on a PC. Like the day I see
Whoa, hold on. This is 2020. Anything is possible.
Okay.
Brian, let me introduce you to the wonderful world called emulation.
Yes.
I wouldn't say wonderful. I would say slightly more convenient.
But what I'm saying is, like, the day we see like Nintendo make like a main Mario or Zelda title for the PC, that's one of the horsemen of the apocalypse.
It is more likely that Nintendo goes out of business than that they put their games on Steam.
Yes,
just an example.
So that is so.
Okay, hang on. Here's the question for 2021. Does Nintendo launch their own proprietary service for Nintendo games on PC? Like Epic Game Store, or like the Nintendo Store for PC.
That's actually something I discussed with one of my friends before, and it would absolutely be viable. But Nintendo is very stubborn, and they want to keep complete control over their IP and the hardware it's on to make sure everything runs perfectly, so that they keep their sterling reputation. I don't think it's likely, but if they brought their things to PC, they would absolutely be doing it on their own platform.
I think they would. I think they would never do it, just on the sole reason that would open the Pandora's box of people being able to mod the games like more directly.
Absolutely,
and they don't want any of that. Like, they're very clearly hate anybody else touching their stuff with
which is
how they
ridiculous. There are several YouTuber. One person I watch who does Boundary Break, which is a very popular series where they show what's outside of the camera bounds that you can see in a game, and talks about the development of the game and why they did certain things. And they did one of those on Animal Crossing New Horizons, which Nintendo immediately hit with the ban hammer with Justice of a Thousand Suns.
Yep, that is Nintendo. So that's what I mean. Like, if there's a game that is coming out for Xbox, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo, or if it comes out on Nintendo, I'm just like, well, I've got a PC. As long as it can run it, great. So that's just from a budgeting standpoint for me. So
yeah, like when you spend $1,000+ on a gaming console or a gaming PC, you really don't want to be spending another like $600 or so on a console to play a game that you can just play on your PC. You just have to wait 6 months to a year.
Yeah, like I know that a decent gaming PC will run you a bit of money, as has already been mentioned.
I mean, I spend about $2,000 on my computer every time I have to replace it, but I do all of my research, get the best parts I can, ones that last the longest. And my current PC, I think, is probably nearing the end of its lifespan, and I think it's 10 years old now.
Yeah.
Right now, aside from talking about PC upgrades, I'm looking to do a PC upgrade soon. I'm probably going to do a two-parter. And the worst part is that it's going to cost me more to do the second half of the PC upgrade than it's going to be for the first half, just because the second half of the PC upgrade is just going to be literally just be like the GPU. The GPUs are so stupid expensive right now.
GPU and RAM is very expensive. Thank you, Bitcoin. So
I was gonna say, with like, for maybe it's for me, I don't consider the full cost of a gaming PC because I've never once bought a PC that has been exclusively for gaming. Like, I have always been a computer person, and I use my PC for a myriad of tools.
Same.
So I'm not spending the money for gaming.
Yeah. I feel like most gamers do that too, where they use their PC for other stuff besides game, but the major workload of it would be for games.
Yeah,
like the majority of like the high end stuff your computer is doing for most people is gaming. Like, unless you're doing some crazy video processing stuff, but most people
unless you're playing in Blender, the ZPixel or video editing software, you're probably not using the most out of your CPU or GPU outside of gaming.
For my gaming workload, Brian, the way Deej and I have done it is, I always, of course, I get the Nintendo system almost always immediately after launch. The only exception to that was the Wii U, which I still do not own to this day. I had a bad feeling, and I was right.
Same.
But then we typically pick up the PlayStation 2 to 3 years after its release, and then we'll pick up the Xbox right about the same time as the next Xbox is coming out, and we can get it for almost nothing.
I think we're assuming there's any Xbox exclusives that aren't on PC right now, because I think almost every single Xbox game is now also cross-platform on PC.
But I've almost always, because I get them so long after the releases, I always get the PlayStation Xbox for much, much cheaper, and I guarantee I save money doing it this way over just getting them on PC, because I get most of the games that I want for those two systems for pennies, basically. Yeah. Because it's so long after they were released as exclusives that I get them for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So that is basically what I do for my gaming needs now. It's like, it's PC and Switch. So it's like, okay, I do not need to buy another PlayStation or Xbox console ever again. So,
I'm basically the same, Brian, but like, the PS5's very tempting between Spider-Man and FF7 for me personally.
I mean,
That's a lot of pull.
Yeah, if for nothing else, I will expect the FF7's episodes to be all on PS5 at launch.
Like,
I was gonna say that with this is something Deej and I talked about, where we have to get a PS5 for Final Fantasy. If we haven't gotten one before Final Fantasy VII, the Part 2 comes out, we'll be buying it exclusively for that, because we're not going to wait until it comes to PC, because it will have the shit spoiled out of it by then. And this is one of the only times where we've actually cared about that. In all of our gate timing time, this is one of the only times where it's like, no, we need to play this at release because we're not having this shit ruined for us.
I watch people stream the first episode because I knew like I wasn't getting a PS4, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to avoid these spoilers, so I might as well experience it through somebody else, so I can at least not be like spoiled on the key points with like stupid memes and then hate the game because I can't actually like play it all the way through until it comes out in, however many months it is away from PC release at this point.
See, this is when I wish I lived closer to you guys, because I would have just lent you my PS4. It just sits here most of the time because I'm typically playing my Switch.
Oh, well. Alrighty, so we're moving on from that. Ron, unless you have anything else?
No, that's it. I'm good.
Okay, so now it's down to Ronny and I. So
instead of rolling the math dice, you want to flip a coin?
Let's see. Do I have a coin on my table here?
I have a coin.
All right. Well, do you want heads or tails, Ronny?
I'm always tails.
All right. Okay, Miles, flip it.
Heads.
Heads. It's me. All right. Very good. So, my topic for this episode, this is going to link back to an earlier DLC episode.
Ooh, it's a sequel.
It's a little bit. 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago, back in Season 8, there was an episode with myself, Ron, Ronny, and Nick talking about loot boxes.
Oh,
yes,
fuck.
we did.
God, please.
We did.
Ronny, this is how we get magic involved in the fucking thing.
We will tie it in.
All right. So we talked about loot boxes. That was a follow. That episode was a follow up to the episode was called Pay to Play, and the first Pay to Play episode was talking about DLC, just the idea of DLC, and pay to win. Then Pay to Play 2 was talking about loot boxes. This particular one, I don't think has enough meat on it to encompass a full proper episode, so I thought I would update us on the whole loot box nonsense. Now, you remember toward the end of that episode, we were talking about some of the things that the industry could try to do to try to get off this whole loot crate business, because if you remember, we also talked about several countries and states either enacting or passing or considering legislation to regulate loot boxes or ban them outright because they are totally gambling. Now, as a result of legislation that either had been passed or the threat of it passing, it forced developers who were using those practices to get some more nickels and dimes out of their gullible players to come up with another creative way to nickel and dime said gullible players. Enter the Battle Pass. Enter the idea of the battle or the season pass, which has by and large, not fully, but has by and large supplanted loot boxes as the way we nickel and dime gullible players into coughing over more money.
Okay, wait a second. It replaced by and large replaced DLC. It had nothing to do with replacing loot boxes. A lot of games with season passes still have loot boxes. It just replaced individual DLCs.
That said, there was an opinion piece done in Game Informer a few months ago that was called "The Battle Pass is the New Loot Box."
Okay, I can get that, but I would still say it's not replacing it. It may become the new primary means of getting money, but like
Loot boxes.
it's not replacing it if we still have loot boxes in those same games.
Loot boxes are still a thing, but you are finding that the idea of the battle pass or the season pass is becoming more and more prevalent.
I mean, even Nintendo uses them.
Yes,
but that's the thing I'll go is, it's not necessarily a bad thing, though.
You haven't let me make my point yet.
Well, I'm not going to let you, because I have opinions, and whether they are unfounded or not, I'm going to share them with the world. I have voice and freedom. This is America. Okay,
Shut up
I'm
and let Brian talk.
Okay, all right. I'm just gonna go over to this mute button here, and
I'm done.
Executive privilege. Executive privilege.
No, just Brian's just gonna edit all of this out.
Yeah, just be like, nope. Any place Ronny is talking, I'm just gonna be like, nope.
He's just like at the beginning, like he's just gonna edit me out of there. I'm not even gonna be introduced, and I'm not gonna be in any of this episode.
Your section now has been entirely null and void. Anyway.
Brian's gonna re-release the entire podcast season with Ronny edited out.
This is my
and call it Persona.
Here's
5
the DLC release, and then here's the Spencer cut.
Here's the Ronny cut. So we have the idea of the battle pass. Now there's a couple of games that I own that use this mechanic very heavily. I have Rocket League and Dauntless. Now, typically with these types of games, there is a season will typically last X number of weeks or months. And there's usually typically like 2 levels of season pass. There's your unpaid, your basic battle pass, and then there's your paid track. Now, the difference between a season pass and a loot box is that with the season pass, you can see all the rewards in that season pass that you will get should you get to those levels. And to get to those levels, you typically have to play the game a ton, especially if you want to get all the rewards in that season before it ends. Because once that season ends, any of those rewards that you didn't get, they're gone.
Or if they might get them later on down the line.
Yes. So
Magic the Gathering.
easy there, Ron.
This is literally exactly how the mastery system works in Magic the Gathering. This is a perfect tie-in.
So
that's why I said Magic the Gathering.
So, and the thing is, a lot of these rewards that you get, whether you're on the unpaid track or the paid track, they're typically cosmetic things. They're typically skins. They're typically, they're typically cosmetic. I mean, I'm approaching this from Dauntless, which is the main game that I'm using for this example. But you have to do tons and tons of grinding. But if you love collecting shit, or you really, really are susceptible to ooh shiny, I must have it now, the season pass can be a bit of it can be a time and money sink. Because even games, even if you buy the battle pass, the game will still try to have you spend more money. Like if there's time running out in the season, but you want to get that very limited edition skin, you can. The game will ask you, hey, if you give us a couple dollars more, you can purchase your way to advanced levels. And this can add up.
It's taking advantage of vulnerable people that may have poor impulse control.
So,
but that's what they are doing. But that's exactly what they're doing with loot boxes,
Yep.
and this is not. This is, I will say, this is better than loot boxes. That does not mean it's good.
That's exactly the point the article was trying to make, because this is monetization in another form. And
This is different than somebody spending $300 in $5 or $10 loot boxes trying to get that single skin that's randomized that they want for a character.
that deliberately has a drop rate of almost 0.
Yeah, instead, nowadays, it's like the level 75 mastery class, pass that you have to spend, like, $35 for the 2-month season to get. And then,
And-
you have to basically spend all of your gaming time to be able to
Get the
hopefully reach
benefits.
that level if you're playing well enough.
Yeah. And I will say one thing from earlier, Brian. I will apologize because when you started off on season passes, I was thinking it's exactly the same term, but I was thinking season passes as in the season passes like you would have for Pokemon, or that you would have for like LA Noire had, where you buy it and you're getting all of this actual DLC. I wasn't considering the continuous online games that are, yes, in what you're referring to, it would absolutely be replacing loot boxes, at least generally.
Now I want you to remember that next time you jump down my throat before I finish.
I'm a goddamn American and I can have unfounded opinions. We discussed this earlier.
Brian has the admin power.
I know, and he knows I'm joking.
I bet you don't
But
wear your
do-
mask either. Anyway,
But does he thinky face?
as my hand hovers over the ban. But no, this is what I'm talking about. Now, I
can just imagine me going on Facebook. April, Brian banned me.
and she would laugh at you.
I know she would. She'd probably write a post on her Patreon about it.
So, now, in a game like Dauntless, now Dauntless by itself is a free-to-download, free-to-pay game. You do not have to pay a single cent to play this game. And I absolutely love that. You get a lot of content for nothing. If you've never,
I've heard amazing things about it. I have not played it yet.
If you've never played Dauntless, it's a big monster hunting thing. It draws a lot of comparisons to Monster Hunter World. But
I basically have been told it's Monster Hunter World with a more stylized aesthetic.
that you've kind of hit it on the nose there, and again, Dauntless is completely free, and in the game Dauntless, the in-game currency is called platinum. Now, platinum can be earned one of two ways. You can buy it, and it's like each single platinum is 1 cent, so it upscales in there. 100 platinum is $1, 1,000 platinum is $10, etc. You can earn platinum in game. If you're taking the basic battle pass, so the unpaid battle pass, you will occasionally earn platinum by ascending the levels. Sometimes it's a reward for completing a side quest, but you accumulate platinum very slowly. On the paid to buy an elite battle season pass, it costs 1,000 platinum, so $10. And the way they have it structured is that each season pass, it's 50 levels. You see all the rewards that you would get at each level. And one of the things I actually like about that system is that if you manage to complete the entire season pass, if you manage to get to all 50 levels, you get half of that platinum back. So you plunk down $10, and if you make it all the way through, you get $5 back, which is a pretty interesting thing. And I decided, you know what? I've sank dozens of hours into Dauntless. You know what? I'll throw $10 at them and see what this is all about. and you get what you get the skins, you get the rate of item drops so that you can build better weapons goes up. And this is all well and good. This is all stuff that you would normally get in game anyway, just at a much slower rate. Now, for a game like Dauntless, I don't necessarily mind this because, again, the game is free. But when you start getting into games that you already have to pay full price for, then we start getting into the idea of why am I paying additional money for content I should already own? And
yeah,
and we talked about, now Ronny, you've mentioned many times on downloadable content that you feel that video games should cost way more than they're selling.
I think the facts back that up in that video game. Well, we have had quite a bit of inflation, plus the cost of video games on average doubles with every console. Yet the price for video games has been stuck at $60 since the early to mid 90s, and arguably even before that. It's a little harder to say when it came to cartridge games, because some of it was based on if they needed special chips, which would increase the price. Because there were some games in the Super Nintendo era that were $80. I believe.
I would say probably like the N64 PS1 era is about when the stabilization of the prices was more consistent. Like, yeah, there was just lot of even Sega was dropping games that were higher priced than they were average to be normally. It wasn't even just like the Super Nintendo RPGs that were like $20 more because they could be.
Yeah, it's not. But even back then, like, the standard was $60. But if you needed something special, it went above that.
Right.
So the standard has been the same for goddamn near 30 years at this point, and things cost more 30 years in the future at this point. We've had inflation. We've had the price of games at this point is 100 times what it was in the SNES era. For every generation of modern ones, from PS2 to PS3, PS3 to PS4, and presumably PS4 to PS5, the cost of developing games has doubled at least for each of those jumps. And for a little while, it worked because the hobby was growing, so they could go, well, it costs twice as much to make, but if we have twice as many gamers by the end of this, then we can do that. But at this point, they're reaching saturation. People that game are gamers now. Yes, there's still going to be some people who are going to come over, but you're not looking at doubling the amount of gamers every generation. And it's getting to the point where even with the previous generation, I would say this is a problem since the PS3 era, where there are companies, and we've seen it, that are going on razor-thin margins, that are basically going, if they have a big title that fails, that company's dead. And there are some companies that are large enough for this to not be an issue, but even big companies like Square Enix have been on the edge of bankruptcy multiple times in the last 15 to 20 years. And this is why. So this whole growth of loot boxes, growth of alternative means to get money, are all meant to fill in this hole. The problem is, they are capitalists as well, so once they found a way to make extra money, they absolutely fucking abused it. I am not going to defend their actions, but I'm going to go, the reason they had to look up those actions to begin with was because they can't make enough money with video games to continue on the way it is right now. And the answer really should be them jacking the price for video games up to probably $80 is at least where it should be at this point for most games.
Well, part of that adjustment is going digital, because then they can cut on their costs of producing as many CDs and game cartridges.
I thought this reduces the overhead.
It's obviously not a one-to-one fix, but that adjustment is going to help alleviate some of the financial burden.
I thought the same thing, but then I watched several videos from people who are in the industry who basically are going, it's not that it won't help us at all, but switching to digital will save us under 5%. That is a drop in the bucket compared to the cost of development, which is the primary cost of this. Like, we're talking percents, like very small numbers at this point of money they're going to save by going digital. It's not that it won't be, like, every little bit helps, but that's not going to be a significant thing on top of that.
5% of like millions of dollars is still millions of dollars.
Okay, but when you're saying a $60, when I'm saying a $60 game should probably be $80 for how much it actually costs at this point, and how, like, 5% of $60, it does not equal $80. Like, adding 5% to 60 is not 80.
Even so, I mean, even a small percentage, it could be worthwhile. But I mean,
yeah.
I see.
Oh no, it's like I'm not shitting all. I'm just going, like, it's every little bit helps, and I think I've said that like 3 times. Every little bit helps, but it's not as significant an amount as I thought it was in the past.
Yeah. So we're seeing this gradual shift away from loot boxes to this type of battle pass or season pass, and you know, I agree with the author of this piece here, but it's like, it's definitely better than loot boxes.
It's better for the consumer. It's worse for the company, because there's not a single doubt in my mind they are going to make significantly less money by doing this, but that's because they are no longer exploiting vulnerable people. But when they look at their bottom line, this is not going to fill that bottom line anywhere close to as much as loot boxes did.
Yeah, and you know, so oftentimes these battle passes are designed so that you have, like I said, you have to do so much grinding on a lot of rote chores and little mini quests to get to these levels to get to each level in the battle pass, where you're also risking players losing interest.
So I've heard that with the next generation of systems, they are going to be pushing the price of games up, and they are going to be changing games so that they are not a single standardized price the way it is right now. Large.
Yeah, I saw that, like, there's a couple games for PS5 that are going to test the $70 price point.
Yep.
So,
and I think basically my thought process is, no matter what they price the games at, until they are outlawed, we're going to have loot boxes or loot box-like mechanics. But if we do end up getting loot box banned, or at least heavily regulated as gambling, we're going to see them taking the actual steps to start jacking the base price up.
I mean, that is the ultimate question that we distill this to. It's like, we know that video games should cost more than $60. The question is, how do you do it in such a way that is not going to have gamers up in arms? Because, I mean, $60 is not cheap. So, you know, you jacked it up to 70 or higher. That, it's like, what do you do when a game becomes that high? I mean, it's a significant reason why I very rarely buy major titles, because...
And digital's not going to be like, right now we have significant discounts on games when they go digital. If we stop having our video game companies subsidized through loot boxes, which is a good... I'm on board with it because loot boxes are exploitative as hell. But when that happens, you're gonna see those really good sales on digital copies. Most of those are going to be going the way of the dodo. The companies are going to be milking the money they can get, and they're going to be taking, and I guarantee they're going to start taking the Nintendo route of, we're not going to be lowering our prices because we need that money. At least for the companies, they need that money. Nintendo's doing it because they don't want to devalue their art.
Well, I mean, their products are good enough that they can get away with never dropping the price. Like, you can't just do that with every game and expect people to just, like, pay the money.
But Horizon Zero Dawn's one of the best games of a generation, and I got it for under $20. Like, how good a game it has no relevance on whether they discount or not. Most of the best games that have ever come out, I've gotten at massive discounts that were not Nintendo. Like, it's a different philosophy of video game selling, where they will only keep the price high immediately at launch when they can get the most money from their sales, and then drop it drastically because, honestly, the tail for video game sales is actually pretty low. So by dropping it drastically like that, you can bring in people that probably wouldn't buy the game at all. At least that's the philosophical reason behind it. Nintendo obviously does not agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean...
They prove that it works by their consistent ability to maintain relevance and pump out constant, good quality products.
I agree with them. I think... But if you notice, the whole point that I was making was other companies are going to be jumping on that bandwagon. If their easy way of keeping themselves afloat of loot boxes goes away.
Yes, I mean, the Battle Pass idea, I think, is a much better idea for the consumer than the loot box. It's still, I mean, video games are a business. So, you know, it's definitely playing on that, you know, get this cosmetic skin now before it's gone. And
the video game industry is sketchy as hell in a lot of ways. And the ways they try to get money out of us is one of them at times. And it's because we haven't increased the price for so long. But the problem is, this is a capitalist society. Now that the Pandora's box is open, it's not going to be closed. They can jack up the price for the game now, but that doesn't mean they're going to stop doing loot boxes, doing season passes, doing the bad versions of DLC. Like, that Pandora's box is open, and it's not going to go down just if they increase the price of the game. And that's the sad reality of it is. If they're not going to go, this is how much money we need to make. It's how much money can we make. And the problem before was it wasn't sustainable, but now that they found basically free sources of income, they are not going to willingly let them go. I'm sorry, was that too dark?
No, I mean, this is a thing that has been an issue with the video game industry for so long. It's also partially why many developers hate the used video game market so much and have been trying for years to get rid of it.
Well, they're going to find that getting rid of the used video game market is not going to help their sales as much as they like, because you want to know what? When they go in and sell those used video games to GameStop, a lot of times they're using that money to pick up a new game they were not going to be able to afford otherwise. They will probably see a slight increase if they can get rid of used game sales, but they are not going to see drastic increases that they expect.
So I just wanted to update the discussion on the whole, you know, monetization and, you know, the whole discussion revolving loot boxes.
Rather than do a part 3 as its own episode.
Yeah, because I think if we did a part 3, we'd just be retreading a lot of the old ground.
Yeah, we would.
So
I expect if a lot of these laws go through, we probably will do a part 3 someday, discussing the changes from it.
Just as an update, yeah. So that was my topic, and so I guess Ronny, you're gonna have the last word.
What? You don't have to roll the math die? The math stones?
Not if you're the only one left.
But you can roll it until you get my number.
Okay, fine.
We'll just have 20 minutes of Brian rolling the die, and then we just cut the.
Then we just cut.
We just
cut the credits.
feed.
Cut the
Well,
credits.
thanks for hanging out. Bye.
Yep.
So, I'm going to take what I know, at least online.
Oh, I rolled it. Hey,
a...
Ronny, your turn.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm going to take at least what is online a controversial stance. I don't know if it will be among you guys, but I think that most video game genres are absolute crap in that they are terms that are too broad to tell you any goddamn thing about the games that are in those genres, and that the best genres, not perfect genres, are the ones like Metroidvania or roguelike or Souls-like or the 4X game genre, in that they actually tell you at least something of what the genre actually is. As examples, Dance Dance Revolution, Guitar Hero, and Cadence of Hyrule are rhythm games. Spore, Assassin's Creed, Fortnite, The Last of Us, Okami, and Zelda are all action games. Mario and Hollow Knight are platformers. Text games say nothing other than they don't have visuals. And the RPG genre is a load of nonsense that makes no goddamn sense on what goes into it, and people are constantly arguing about it because they can't even agree on what it is. Genres are a load of crap. We need a better system. I prefer the system like Metroidvania or roguelike or Souls-like, where you're comparing it to a touchstone. That's what Hollywood executives do when they pitch movies. They go, it's this movie, but in space. It's this movie, but on a plane. Because that tells you what you're trying for. It at least gives you a touchstone to work off of. I have ranted a lot so far. What do you guys think?
Now be careful.
Try changing naming conventions that have been in place since literally Pong.
Changing naming conventions that mean absolutely nothing, and at this point, if they were erased from any reference to a game, it would remove absolutely no information on what that game actually is.
Now be careful. Ronny is going to judge you silently, or maybe not.
So,
depending on your
what's
answer.
an RPG? Zelda is an RPG. The original Fallout was an RPG. Skyrim was an RPG. Final Fantasy is an RPG. Dark Souls is a goddamn RPG. Tell me what these games have in common, and don't you dare tell me it's narrative, because I can name 1,000 games with narrative that are not considered that.
You're
What's the connecting
overgeneralizing the term RPG. Like, Zelda has RPG elements, but
it was
it's not
defined as
an
an RPG when it came out. I've argued that for years that it's not an RPG.
I mean, it's not, though. It's just not. Like, you can
It's-
argue it, but it's just not.
Hold on, one at a time, people.
Okay, it's not an RPG, but the original Zelda, Zelda 2, and Link to the Past were all RPGs in Nintendo Power and other magazines at the time. They are arguably defining RPGs at the time, but what we consider RPGs moved away after that, and they were given their own thing. But they were RPGs, and there are still things considered. Dark Souls was listed as an RPG. I can pull my Game Informer out and show you. Like,
not exactly taking the journalistic integrity of Nintendo Power when it comes to that kind of thing, but, you know.
well, what are you going to take at that point?
I mean, those are ads. They're not, you know, it's not like
That's what we had at
scripture
that
that you have to go on.
Okay,
No.
Can I answer the original question of what do I define as an defining of a role-playing game, the characteristics of a role-playing game?
Sure. I think you and I have already discussed this, but yes.
In my opinion, the characteristics of a role-playing game is assuming the persona or character or identity of an individual through game mechanics, interacting with hard number increases via stat increases, health points, what have you, and going through the story presented to you by the untold narrator and experiencing the story as it unfolds. And of all the games you listed that are all listed in RPGs, they all have a story of some kind to tell. You are assuming the role of a character, whether you create the character or not, is up to debate. But there are also hard numbers that are increased as you gain levels of a sort in a game. And even if it's not levels per se, it's increasing of stats.
Okay. The ultimate point of most genres, that genre title says very little of what that game actually is, and is of very little use for comparison purposes at this point, because every original genre, which, when I say original, I mean the classic genres, platformer, action, RPG, simulation, puzzle, even rhythm and things like that came later, all have become so broad at this point because games have evolved. Games have evolved, they are pushing boundaries, they're trying new things. But when they do all of this, we still have to fit things underneath those broad umbrellas, and it gets to the point that they become so broad, they don't really say anything.
So you're not necessarily asking for the abolition as much as it is the evolution of the terminology.
Yes, I'm saying they are of very little actual. Please be honest with me. If you look at the genre of a game, does that really tell you much about it at this point? And I mean that honestly, because it doesn't for me. I say I'm an RPG gamer because most of my favorite games fall in the RPG category, but I can't see something that says RPG and go, okay, well, is this a Western style RPG? Is this a Japanese style RPG? Is this an action RPG? Is this an RPG in this vein or that vein? It tells me very little of that. And honestly, like, as bullshit as I think it might be, like, that's better than action, because action has so much under it that it really tells you nothing.
Okay, so to answer your initial question, I do not disagree with you. Some of the terminology has become so muddled and cluttered over the decades. I can't believe I'm saying decades. That it is, you cannot easily define a game. But positing the next question is, okay, how do you clear up that definition in your terminology? You then need to introduce evolution of the terminology, a la Metroidvania, Souls-like, roguelike, etc., etc.
Like, what brought this up originally was people talking about how Metroidvania, roguelike, Souls-like, that these are terrible terms that should not be used. They are not elegant. They're not elegant. They're not pretty. They are jargony in that people who are outside of video games don't necessarily know what those mean. But what they are is functional. They are functional in that they actually tell you something. They give you more information, generally.
If you're not familiar with a genre, and you are basing the genre name off of games, then someone who's not familiar is not going to know what that means. Because if someone doesn't know what Metroid is or Castlevania, and you tell them that it's a Metroidvania game, they're going to be like, okay, I don't know what that means, so I have no interest. So I mean, like, it's a dual-edged sword when you have naming convention based off of specific, like, iterations in that genre.
So for Metroidvania, I would say it is a exploration-based game to the fan. Now, that's not necessarily accurate to the overarching goal of it, if we're trying to hone down any more on calling it a Metroidvania. But the overarching, the very loose term for any Metroidvania game is exploration of a map.
I would say, like, if I had to give it a more specific title, I would say a Metroidvania is an exploration action RPG. That's what most of them would fall into.
Yes, yeah, most of them would fall under that terminology.
But even then, there are exceptions, like Hollow Knight would be a platformer, not an RPG. Yes, but it would still be exploration action.
And then again, it is and then saying for something like Souls, like, I would say punishing RPG, if that makes sense. Where mechanics where it feels very punishing. You feel like like, does that make sense? Like punishing RPG?
Here's the thing. I can add. This is unlike Zelda. This is one that I can get it being called an RPG, but like to me, its primary would be like it would be more action than RPG. I would put action as a genre.
Punishing action RPG, I guess. Does that make sense? Punishing ARPG.
But
this is kind of like what muddles the conversation is like. RPG does not mean the same thing to everybody.
Yeah,
and like
I
think that term
and I'm sorry
alone causes so much like confusion and disarray because like everybody has a different definition for RPG.
By the way,
and there is absolutely no way to get rid of RPG as a term or get everybody to agree on what it actually means.
I'm sorry I got heated at you about the Zelda one. I have argued for 15 years that Zelda isn't an RPG. You have no idea how many people believe it is an RPG, and a lot of that was fueled by early video game magazines that listed it as an RPG.
I would say Zelda's an action RPG in most of its iterations.
It would probably be a defining action RPG, but these are things that are they're straight RPGs, and that's not what Zelda is. But if you put a post on your Facebook going, is Zelda an RPG? I guarantee you are going to get some people that are going to argue with you that it is. I was surprised how many people I've argued with that having to go, Zelda is not an RPG. It is not a traditional RPG. And they're like, yes, it absolutely is. They are convinced it is. Because, as you said, RPG means different things to everybody, which means it means very little. Some people believe RPG is narrative, and they think that any game with a strong narrative is an RPG. It has nothing to do with the mechanics.
Well, yeah, no, people take the literal definition of the term, as in it's a role-playing game, or any game that you play a person who is going through a story, then that's a role-playing game to them, and that's...
Which
that just leads to what we're talking about. Where like it's silly. It's silly, broad. And it's always going to be silly.
Yeah, and for me specifically, if you have some sort of growth mechanic over the course of the game, I would say that it classifies it as an RPG of a sort.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I just want to get my... for me, I think that if you don't see statistics, it's not an RPG. Like, if the statistics are in the background, if the statistics are, like, you know...
If they're in the hardware, not in your menus. Right?
But not even just that, like, you know, you guys are saying, like, Zelda is an action RPG, and I disagree because there's no stats in that game. Like, you have your hearts, you have, like, your sword, shield, tunics that, like, grow, quote-unquote, when you get the upgrades, and that's, like, about as close to the RPG elements that it has. Because your character doesn't talk to people. Like, people talk to you, but you don't talk to them. So it's harder to call it a role-playing element because you're not truly being that character because you're not really experiencing their conversations in the way that you would in a true RPG. So
you're preaching to the choir on that, but to if I look at for most things when I'm looking up because this is not the first time I've had a discussion about genres and video games and this kind of stuff. Zelda is listed as one of the classic definitive action RPG. And that's usually what I'm arguing when people are saying it's an RPG and I go, no, it's an action RPG, that's not the same thing. I would argue it's not an RPG at all. I agree with you, but
I've always classified it as action adventure.
Yeah.
That's all, except for, Adventure of Link, which is definitely much more... if any Zelda is an RPG, it's Adventure of Link.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%.
That's it.
I would agree with you 100%, but at least for me, I've seen that as a losing battle trying to convince people of that.
I don't bother. I just ignore them. It's irrelevant.
But RPG is a genre where me and Ron, at least I know, have discussed in a previous podcast that RPG really is several genres all in one that should probably be separated out, because there is a very big difference between Western RPGs with their large exploration focused, with a downplayed, usually more open-ended narrative, and a heavily narrative-focused JRPG with a like turn-based combat system and like all of the bells and whistles that go along with that.
Then you could go even further into the box and be like, well, then there's like the subset of D&D based RPG game mechanics versus non-D&D based RPG game mechanics, and just like it's like, no, I don't want to entangle that. Like it's like you get like, you open your tackle box and there's just like a mess of fishing line. You don't unravel it. You just snip it off and you throw it away and you say, whatever. Like,
those are called isometric RPGs.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think the question, I think kind of what you're getting at is, how far do we go down? Like, what is the appropriate level of
rabbit holing?
Well, there's an actual word of granularity. Thank you. Thank me, I guess, because I figured that. But
you're welcome.
Yeah, I said thank you, like somebody told me the word, and I'm like, no, I told myself the word. But thanking myself is weird.
Thank you.
But
thank the voices in your head, Ronny. We
the
got
appropriate
Thank
level.
you, M. Bison.
Wait, I guess I go. Where's the appropriate level of granularity? And I think what we currently use as genres need to be more granular to be of much use. That doesn't mean we need to dig all the way down to the most specific we can get, but I do think we can get more specific and have these genres mean more.
I just feel like at this point in gaming, we have games that are so stretched out over so many different genres. Like, gaming nowadays isn't about evolving new styles of gameplay, but more like, how many different styles of gameplay can I mash into this game and still make it fun?
So
you know
basically,
what I mean?
genres are passe, and there's something we should probably try to move beyond.
Yeah, it's just like games are so genre ambiguous at this point that like it's hard to find them with like a few terms and like give people a good grasp of what they're actually about anymore.
I kind of lean toward that, Spencer, especially when we're talking indie games, because indie devs have made it. Words, rented lips. Cross-genre games, like the old sort of defining lines as to the different game genres are getting more and more blurred, and that is by design.
It's not only just by design, I think it's just a product of the industry starting to stagnate because there's so little fresh, like, innovation in terms of gaming. You know, there's so many remakes and sequels and re-releases, and you know, like, everything that's like really new is like so down on the indie level that it's hard for it to like really grasp the mainstream to the point where it's going to like really shift and start a new genre.
Yeah, that's why I bring up indie devs, because you want to get your blurring the genre lines, I guess, as it were. You would start going down into the indie devs. I mean, because the last thing I think we would want to do is basically classify video games using the same sort of animal scientific classification that we use for the animal kingdom. It's like we're not gonna start taking RPGs and breaking them down by kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species.
I suppose I would go, if I wouldn't have a problem if we as a gaming
populace. How the hell do I still remember that from middle school bio? Jesus Christ!
Don't lie, you have it pulled up, you liar.
Rule that bit ahead of time? Jesus.
Yeah, I would say I would have no issue with genre just stopping being a thing entirely, because I get the argument otherwise, but I don't see that being a popular movement. I don't see that ever happening, and if we have genres, they may as well be actually useful.
If anything, genres will just evolve into memes, where like people just me and my fiance, when we play Red Dead Redemption 2, we just call it like yeehaw. Like, you know, like that's where I see it going. Like, just like instead of it being like traditional names, it's just gonna be memes because, you know, the gaming culture tends to lean towards the like trolly, memey kind of stuff like that.
I mean, we have made new, like I said, like the ones that I've been kind of advocating for, like Metroidvania, roguelike and roguelite, Souls-like, the 4X, like those are ones that came out of what people were saying, not from what publications were saying, and they've become actual useful things. Like saying Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania tells me way more than telling me Hollow Knight is a platform.
Which as a gamer, you know, you say Metroidvania, you understand that, and you know that's fine. But I think the point Spencer was trying to make was, you know, to somebody to somebody who's a non-gamer or who's not familiar with that, you say Metroidvania, and they're gonna look at you and be like, "The fuck." I mentioned
one of the issues was jargon when I brought it up.
Yeah.
But I would argue I think that's a smaller issue than people would think, because if you tell someone that Hollow Knight is a platformer and they think it's like Mario, that is just as useless. If you tell them that Fortnite is an action game and they're expecting Legend of Zelda, that is useless to them.
Well, I mean,
they're getting directly misled.
At this point, saying Fortnite is an action game is misleading because it's a battle royale game now. Like, obviously, that's not originally what the game was intended to be, but like, when anybody talks about Fortnite, they're talking about the shooter with the building, and that's what they're talking about.
I agree with you 100%.
Like, that's
and battle royale is one of the things I think is a good genre. I think that says something.
Yeah, that's one of the few that's like got a more traditional naming structure, but like actually works and gives you
two other ones that I think are traditional and work are tower defense and real-time strategy. Partially because real-time strategy was never big enough. It did have some big titles, but it never became so mainstream in how many games were being produced that it really stretched far outside of its little box. And tower defense is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a curmudgeon, I guess.
You guess?
I mean, I guess it's kind of self-explanatory that I'm a curmudgeon.
No.
But yeah, I guess I would just, like I said, I feel like the jargony titles, at least they don't directly mislead people, which the regular genre titles can at times. And once you know what that title means, once you've played one Metroidvania, you get what a Metroidvania is. And now you know if that's the kind of game you want, you can find it. But if you see one of the more general genres, and you think it's going to be like another one that was in that genre, you're probably going to be wrong, and you may be very disappointed.
Oh,
I think I'm done.
That's the joy about language; it evolves.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So there we are. Ryan, are you still alive?
Yeah, somehow.
Okay, we haven't heard you in a while, so.
Yeah.
You've just been kind of sitting back there, just.
We want to make sure the spray from Ryan didn't kill you.
Yeah, I know. There have been so because I got Persona was really good. I enjoyed it. I tried to follow along with because I know I'm playing Breath of the Wild right now, and I know a little bit of the other stuff. The loot box one I wasn't as familiar with because I got that one almost confused with Crate, which I'm a lot more familiar with, and Loot Crate is a lot more fun.
Yes, yes. There is a big difference between Loot Box and Loot Crate. So.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the world of RPGs. Good luck classifying that, because I think that is the most of
cluttered
of the video game genres out there. I think the RPG is probably one of, if not the broadest, right up there with action adventure.
It's the most useless one by far. Like, without question, it's like you get very, very little actual information by knowing that. And like even the subsets of like action RPG and like all that JRPG, Western, all that it's just is equally useless and gives you as little information as possible.
I agree wholeheartedly. That RPG and action are the two biggest offenders.
I mean, action, you can at least be like, okay, it's going to be like a movie, but I'm playing it, so there's going to be some more combat than a traditional movie, but it's still going to like work in that way. So like, even though that's not always the case, you at least like get some idea of like the at least gameplay elements that you're going to be experiencing.
And I mean,
I'll probably agree RPG is more useless, but our action's pretty close too.
Ryan, you were saying?
I was gonna say, if you want to really even deeper into RPGs, you have the turn-based, you have the open world, you have some of the,
tactical,
yeah. Like seriously, you can really dive deep into what they are.
Absolutely.
I mean, then you've got stuff like, you know, like The World Ends With You. Like you can call that a JRPG. Great. That game plays nothing like a JRPG.
There's nothing. Like, I cannot think of a genre that you could put that into. That is one of my favorite games of all time.
For what game?
The World Ends With You.
Yep.
Like you played it, Spencer, right?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what I would define that as. Do you know what you define that as? Because I don't think there's any set of genres that accurately describe what the fuck is going on in that game.
Yeah, it's
honestly collectible JRPG.
But it's not really action though, because it plays more like. I mean, I've never played
beat 'em up. It's an beat 'em up like side-scrolling thing with like.
No, it's not.
I call it.
But your combat's in a different screen, so it's not a side scroller in that respect. Like, you don't fight on the same.
By side scrolling, I meant once you made the battle transition, you scroll left to right in the battle screen.
Oh yeah. Well,
its genre is double screened bullshit. That's its genre. I love it. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But like, yeah, the double screen would definitely have to be in that description somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's very unique to the DS, but there are a lot of DS games that are very unique to the DS, so that's not really saying much.
Yeah,
multi-screen collectible action JRPG.
Action, you gotta get fashion in there too, because that's all. The game's all about
collection. That's what collection's for.
Well, I thought you were talking about the button collecting for the combat.
No, I meant fashion too.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, all right.
But yeah, that the World Ends With You is a great example of why genres are bullshit.
Just play games, man. It's just games. Go.
I mean, dude, there's demos out most of the time nowadays, anyway. So like, who cares? Just play the demo if you aren't sure.
Actually, here, I would agree with you wholeheartedly, but I wish that was more true. Like, yes, more demos are coming out now than recently, but like. I nowhere near as many demos exist now as they did in the 90s.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, I missed those.
Well,
at least
the like AAA top games that you're going to be paying a lot of money for if you're going to get it new when it comes out. Like, you at least those get demos, so you at least know, like, am I going to be buying this $65 plus tax game or not? I can at least try this demo and be misled by it and then buy it and find out.
That makes sense. I will end this topic with, because I didn't mention it when I did my list of better genre names at the beginning, the 3 examples I had for how varied puzzle games are: Portal, Tetris, and Myst.
You're not kidding.
And nobody can say that those aren't puzzle games, but that genre tells you nothing about those 3 of them in like similarity to each other.
I mean, I could also add in 2 other games with that as well. And both, well, I haven't played one of the games, but I have seen the gameplay through of it. The first one, I know, because I know a while ago, we actually did a puzzle game episode quite a while ago, and one of the other games that I saw a playthrough was called a plague. It was a Plague Tale, but Innocence is what the game is called.
I've not played that. I have seen it, though.
Something is Innocent, or something like Big B is You is a puzzle game technically. I think. I forget what. Or it's Something Is You is a Switch game.
Like, they're right that they all have puzzles, but
You can
they're
say Zelda
wrong.
is the puzzle game.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm like. I mean, they're right that there are puzzles in these games, but they're wrong in that this genre actually tells me what these games are any of these games are similar to each other.
Resident Evil
totally
is the puzzle game. Like, you know, like it's we could do this all. Like, we could do an entire day of just naming stuff like this and just
I know.
trolling people.
Missed the original walking simulator.
Yep.
So
It's 3 hours. Brian, you want to kind of wrap up?
I'm gonna because I've had 2 3-hour podcasts today. So
Hey, that equals 1 6-hour podcast.
hey,
Yeah, get out of here, crying.
Two more get to start doing time and a half.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna have to start providing paid meal breaks.
Ooh. Pizza?
Chicken.
I had stromboli for dinner, but yes. So, if any of you out there on the wide world of the internet want to chime in on any of the things we talked about in this episode or any other episode of downloadable content, just let us know on our website, dlcpodcast.com. Click the feedback button, let us have it. And every single episode can be found on the website, as well as iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and Spotify. So, there you all. All that remains for me to do is to thank Ron, Ronny, Ryan, and Spencer for being on this episode with me. So on that, I am Brian. Have a good one, everybody.